Hello and welcome to The Deepest Dive, the best, most thorough discussion about Mass Effect 1 on the internet. I am Ben Hansen, joined by Leo Vader.
We made it.
Joe Juba.
Final stretch.
And Sarah Elmale. Welcome back, Sarah.
So let's meet here in 10 years. Put on Tuesday, I have a thing on Tuesday.
Okay.
But, you know.
That's a great idea. And then we can finally tackle Mass Effect 2 like everyone's screaming at us to do.
Let's do Deepest Dive Part 2 10 years from now.
In 10 years, this video might snowball enough to get 1 million views, right?
That's right. That's the goal. If one of these hits 1 million.
The population keeps rising.
And then at that point, we'll have to decide whether to do Mass Effect 2 or start up with the Andromeda trilogy.
That's right. That revolutionized gaming as we know it. This is the third part of a big game club discussion where we're tackling all of Mass Effect 1 along with MinnMax community. If you're watching this, thank you, first of all. You can listen to it if you'd like for your own convenience. You can unlock the podcast version of this Deepest Dive, all of our other Deepest Dives, our interviews, Max spoilers, early access to the MinnMax show, if you support us over at patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's at the $5 tier. So if you like this format, you can support it or join it over on patreon.com/MinnMax. We'd appreciate it. We have a lot of stuff coming up in the future, which we can even get to at the end of this Deepest Dive. Leo, remind me to talk about the future at the end of the Deepest Dive, please. Okay, great, thanks. Where these comments are coming from that we're going to be reading throughout the entire show, they're coming from people that supported us at any tier over on Patreon. They submit a comment, we read it. Huge thank you to everybody that played Mass Effect along with us and submitted some wonderful, great, insightful, specific comments. And this one in particular, there's some very great specific comments. And so thanks to everybody who submitted some great stuff. At the start of every episode, we like to play a little something we like to call Most Common Comment. What do you think was the biggest refrain? Is that the best way to put it? The most common comment submitted about the final third of Mass Effect 1, which we should clarify for people. This is covering everything from Virmire on. So DLC, the ending, everything like that's going to be spoiled for just Mass Effect 1. We won't spoil anything beyond Mass Effect 1, but this is everything else from that point. Okay, Joe, you're a thinking man. What do you think is the most common comment?
My guess would be Ashley versus Caden.
Interesting. Sarah, what do you think?
Yeah, since we are including Virmire, I'm going to go ahead and say Rex.
I absolutely thought it was going to be Rex, but maybe it still is. Leo, here's a hint. It's not what you think. So what do you think is going to be the most common comment?
Oh, no.
What?
If it's not what I think,
yeah, go with
then it'll be, people's favorite gas giant that you can't land on your survey.
Do I
Most
see
polite
gas
planet.
giant? No, number one was really striking. It was love or fascination with Sovereign. People are really into Sovereign in a way that I did not expect.
Wow.
Number two, I would say, is love for the credits song, which I did not see coming from a million miles away. And then 3 was kind of like Saren's suicide talk, I think, which I thought for sure it was going to be Rex. But hey, you never know.
Saren's suicide was up there, and then I was like, no, wait, it's probably Rex. That was my. But yeah.
Are comments about Saren's suicide talk, are those positive or negative?
Just kind of like, what do you think about the fact that happened? Look, we can get to all those, but it seems weird to jump right to the end, right? We should start with a little something from Nick Reed here, who submitted a comment that has been driving everybody insane. So thank you for getting to the heart of this, Nick. He says, hey, to clarify for everyone from part 2, the hacking minigames between console and PC are different. The Simon Says is console and the Frogger/Super Hexagon game is PC. And that's why we just hit an impasse when it came to communication with Sarah. I'm like, what are you talking about?
That was very fun. Thank you. Yes, thank you. I saw those comments. Thanks.
Yeah. And here's like a general one. Jake Tricks writes in saying, Mass Effect is special to me because it helped forge my friendship with my coworker back in the late 2000s, sharing my adventures, and a poor choice or two I mistakenly made was a lot of fun. Sort of comparing experiences, you know? We went on to become really good friends. Does the panel have any friendships that were forged over this one game? Over Mass Effect 1? This feels like a part 1 comment, but I thought I guess we haven't really dove too much into this.
In part 1. I had a relationship that was, I won't say tested. I mean, I was like a helpless slug in a bed, and my partner would be like, you need to eat food. So that was how that But, and then we both fell asleep with the menu music playing in the background, with Vigil playing in the background. So it's like, trial by fire or something.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Mm. I'd say in the offices, this was a popular game, right? Mass Effect, and just a series overall. So even though I can't say that it's like I have any friendships that were founded on the basis of Mass Effect, I would say that there were definitely like bonding moments regarding Mass Effect, like when JV and I would gang up on Elise for liking Thane, which is a Mass Effect, 2 and 3 thing. But there's like you find the person who's sort of on your Mass Effect wavelength, and then you can like team up against someone who isn't on your wavelength, and those are fun little jabs to toss back and forth.
Yeah, renegade moments.
Actions. Wait, so are we gonna have to have words about Thane?
Yeah, that's for the future, Sarah. That's when we hit 1 million views for one of these deepest dives on Mass Effect. There's too much to get through.
If there are 1 million views for this, I will fight Joe for Thane's honor.
Thane and kind. I think you should meet Elise Favis. I think you'd really get along with her, actually. She's exactly our coworker that's up your alley. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but Joe, that's the first thing I thought of too, is just like the Game Informer office. And like, it really seemed like it's such a good entry point for people like a JV or an Elise coming into the office, and it's like, okay, surrounded by strangers, but what we all have in common is opinions on Mass Effect characters and go, Yeah. Leo, the final third, you finally did it. You finally finished Mass Effect, man.
I did. Thank you so much. We're here to celebrate.
Yeah.
It was probably my favorite chunk so far. I really dug the whole last narrative push. I was kind of rushing because I kind of forgot to beat it until this morning, but that kind of hurts games sometimes when you're feeling rushed, but like it totally matched the urgency that the plot was moving along at, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, there really wasn't that much left. I mean, obviously, if you saved a lot of side quests and stuff like that, and the DLC, there's still that stuff to conquer, which we can cover in this episode if y'all want to. But yeah, I was really struck by this section as well, Leo. Like, oh God, the middle section was definitely a low point for me in remembering all the faults and just repeated environments and slowly plodding around. And this was just like, oh yeah, this is why I love Mass Effect. It's kind of the first third and the final third are just perfect. Like I forgot how good and how tight this ending is.
It definitely made me understand why people got into it as hard as they have. Yeah. The whole reveal with the Sovereign and everything I was glad that wasn't spoiled for me. That was very cool.
Ooh.
Oh, it wasn't. Oh, that's fantastic. I just assumed that things like that had been spoiled for you by
I obviously knew the Reapers were a thing, but I didn't know it was the ship, which is a great twist.
Oh, fun. Okay. Jackson von Heitzma writes in, submits a comment on Patreon saying, this is my first time playing Mass Effect in around 7 years, and what struck me the most was how good of a mission Vermeer is. It requires you to make choices both in conversation and through gameplay, and rewards or punishes both those actions, and some from earlier in the game. Absolute top tier stuff. Yeah, no doubt about it.
That's very good.
Flying over. Go ahead.
I'm so jealous that Leo got to experience that Sovereign reveal and that conversation. Like totally fresh. That is when I think back to like video game moments that I wish I could like do again for the first time. That interaction with Sovereign is definitely one of them. Just because, like, I also just absolutely did not see it coming. And there is something, like, I feel like the game does a great sort of fake out with making you think Saren is the bad guy. And they give you just enough information to mislead you, right? Which is a great component of a mystery. To say, like, well, his ship is responsible for indoctrination. But they never really hint that, like, oh, yeah, this is a sentient ship.
Yeah.
Right. And then he just has those... He has some badass lines like that, like what is it? You survive because we allow it, and you will die because we demand it.
Yes.
Or something,
beautiful
like
rhetoric.
That.
Beautiful.
Oh,
ancient Greeks would be pleased, I think.
Yeah, Nick Wright wrote in about that. He loves that line, and I was curious about Leo's thoughts on it. There's something kind of funny. I love it. I love Sovereign. I love the entire sequence. It always makes me laugh when there's like a being or an entity in fiction that's like, I'm so far above you, you can't even comprehend like the way I think or what I'm dealing with. But at the same time, as they're explaining that, they're like twirling their mustache. Like, I'm so high above you. I'm just another level of existence, but I'm going to be a real stinker as I explain to you why. It's like, you're so petty for some enlightened
petty
being.
AF.
Yeah. At a certain point, it was like, yeah, why are you talking to me then?
Exactly.
I find that that's like, there's a line beyond which you say that and you're like, you wouldn't even get it. Like where I start to be like, okay, you better have, it's like Cylons and Battlestar. I'm like, you better have the coolest stuff going on behind that curtain or I'm gonna but I feel like Mass Effect keeps me the happy side of that, of the believing that they're just their game plan is more complicated and their way of working is more sophisticated than I can actually do. It's a hard one, but I was sold. Still am sold.
What surprised me about those conversations this time is there are a couple points when you basically have the opportunity to say, like, as Sovereign is sort of explaining what the cycle is, what the Reapers are doing, all of that, and this is sort of when the response is you wouldn't understand. The question you're asking is, why are you doing this?
Yes.
What is the Reaper's motivation? And it surprised me because even though I know that now, having played the trilogy, Mass Effect completely skirts that question with the trick you guys are talking about, where it's like, it's so far beyond you, you wouldn't understand it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's actually very frustrating when, like, to make a compelling villain, you kind of need to know the why. You need to know why they're doing what they're doing. And Mass Effect just absolutely does not answer it until future games.
But I feel like at the same time, it really surprised me going back to this game of like, oh, they lay a lot out. You really understand all the stakes. You get to see a Reaper in action. Like it's not like they're saving Reapers for later in the trilogy. It's like they lay almost everything out in front of you in a really great way.
And learning what happened with the Protheans, like what happened last time. I'm with you, Joe. That's always a big problem with villains when you don't get why they're doing what they're doing. But I think this gave me enough other elements that made them compelling.
That's the kind of the benefit of having a two-tiered villain structure, right?
Yes.
Like so that Saren becomes more comprehensible and more like interesting. I feel like they actually could have done, I'm trying to remember from his various monologues and the versions of them, his like, how he started into it, because I think there's someone like Liara asked, she's like, well, was it for power or maybe it's right after, was it for power or was it to try and stop them? And it's not really, you don't really get an answer on that at the beginning, but like he's this oppositional force that does become a little more like, relatable, #relatable Saren genocide. But yeah, like, so that's where you get, and then you get to keep the sort of cloakier, more mysterious, like longer tail thing with the Reapers.
Yeah.
Minor note here. That's just an indictment on myself. When Saren came back, I was like, "Who is that?"
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That's that is amazing because like we were joking about that last episode even like
I was gonna say
the most you see of him in person is only on Eden Prime, and then from then on you get a hologram of him. That huge hologram, and you see him freaking out in that one cutscene, and then it's like, then he's just gone.
Right.
And just mentioned,
so it's not a burn on you. That's a product of the game for sure.
Yep, for sure.
Speaking of burns on you, Leo, Andrew Burns writes in, he says, I think my favorite specific sequence is when Saren arrives on Virmire and is just tearing it up at a blistering pace to the point where it almost seems like the camera can't keep up with him. It really makes him seem like an intimidating loose cannon on a rampage. We're just running in, slamming doors. I love Saren in this section. I think all of it's so cool.
Yeah.
I wondered about the camera stuff. I wonder how intentional it was. I feel like there were a lot of like quick moves and like too close up on characters sometimes. Sometimes I wasn't sure if it was like glitching out in a weird way.
Yeah, they're really...
Like 2010s or around that era filmmaking too. Like there was Born Identity style.
For sure.
Time and editing, and now we're all like, just settle down. I want to see what's happening. Like I feel like that's become the kind of industry standard.
Yeah, that's a really good point,
right?
Especially for as cinematic as Mass Effect tries to be, like that answers that question pretty clearly, I think.
Yeah, there's a couple weird shots in this sequence too, and maybe I'm just thinking too much about it and the fact that like, oh, Shepard's named after the astronaut Alan Shepard or something. There's a couple shots in the sequence or in this section where it's just a close-up of like Shepard's foot pressing down. Like right after you set out all your goals on Virmire, it's like, all right, basically mission start, as they'd say in Mega Man Legends. You just see like this close-up shot and it's just like basically the moon landing like Shepard just putting her foot down. And then also when you get back to the Citadel and like there's the weird gravity bit, it's also like a weird close-up shot, and then Shepard's foot comes in as like the kickoff for that entire sequence, which is, notable camera stuff.
The second one makes sense in the sense of like you're establishing that you have a seal or like a gravity thing on the, it's whatever, why you get to walk around in the Citadel when there's no gravity. But the first one, I don't know. It's like the rom-com entrance with the foot out of the car. I don't know. It's just like, here's your hero.
Right. Yeah. Let's see. So we should just keep going down this Sovereign train because a lot of people have a lot of thoughts on him. Shane Carley writes in and says, the Sovereign reveal in Vermeer will always stand out to me as one of my favorite, as one of the most informative video game moments of my life. Hearing Sovereign's voice say, rudimentary creatures of blood and flesh, gave me chills when I first played it, and it still does today. It's the moment that makes you realize that everything you've been doing up until that point has only scratched the surface of the story. Braden Summers says, the fact that Sovereign is not labeled when you have subtitles on define him and the Reapers as an unstoppable force that cannot be reasoned with, let alone fought. I do love, and I love just that idea of like, they say like, at some point Shepard calls him a Reaper, and he's like, yeah, they started calling us Reapers. We don't even have names. We're that advanced. Like that idea is just some stupid label that Protheans, I think, put on us.
Yeah. So last episode, I said that there was a voice performance that I wanted Sarah's take on, and that was Sovereign's.
Ooh,
I love it.
I guess part of what I'm curious about is that, and like clearly it's sort of been processed or something with technology, but like what do you think the direction was for that? Because it seems to me it just sounded like sort of grumble into this microphone and be real menacing and evil about it.
I wrote this down too, where I was like, BioWare has such strong, they know how to cast a monologuing villain. Like if they're going to have monologuing villains and they love writing really floral language for them, I think they just have a real knack for it. Because I actually don't think it's like, it could be way more like, you could just be putting a lot more into, it could be more presentational, it could be thicker with like, meh, but it's simple and it's dry, and the pacing is both effective dramatically and also leaves room for all that processing to kind of do its work. And like, I think it's just very, my guess is that the direction is just like, we cast you because you have an amazing voice that already has a lot of texture and bass to it, and B, less is more. That's my guess, is that in general for their direction, for their villains, it's like, we've written you some dope words. We're going to throw some dope processing on your like, excuse me. Sorry. On your stuff. And then that'll just kind of carry. I think that in other series that kind of live in other, like I could see Metal Gear, it would just be like in a great way, but it would just be a very different aesthetic. It would just be huge and just like, I don't know what those words are, but I think less is more is probably what they did. And they're like, just say it. So, I mean, that authority comes from lack of being fussed, lack of being rushed, lack of feeling like you have to, making people come to you. And so I think that's what they're leaning on there. I love that performance. I think they actually did a really good job in the Monitor too. And Anthem, who also is also just a vague monologuing badass with an incredible voice. So very much in the same lineage.
I didn't mean to put down that performance at all either. Obviously, I love Sovereign's thing. I was just sort of, I think you're right though. The sparseness of it is sort of what makes it really stand out. Just the sort of like casual way, or like Ben was saying about like, Reapers, whatever. Like I barely even care enough about this conversation to have it. So whatever. Which is
why Saren is so great. Like the two work together so well, because Saren is much more Shakespearean in his, and he also is doing exquisite work. Fred, I think I caught one line in his final speech that was just like, his voice cracked on the word resolve. And I was like, you genius. Oh, Fred. But he's just like up here and he's like, I'm a magician. I'm an illusionist. And then the wizard is behind the curtain being like, whatever. So that's the kind of dynamic that you have there. So when he's trying a little too hard, Saren, to be the true authority.
There's something that drove me nuts in this section, and it's coming up in a little bit, but just for the voice acting, it drove me nuts. And I'm curious how you would handle it, sir. I'm going to assume you're much smarter than the way they tackle this.
I have all the voiceover answers, all of them. What do you need?
So there's a section where it's like garbled radio transmission, when you're only hearing certain words from like what is eventually revealed to be Vigil, the Prothean VI or AI, whatever. And it just drove me nuts because it's like, why wouldn't they just have you read like a sentence script and then just cut out the words that are not there, like they're garbled away? Because it certainly sounds like it's just the garbled script written out, and then the person is jumping in there being like, Mayday, Mayday, there are no, look out for this. It feels so stilted and weird. Yeah, it's like it should have just been a natural thing, and then they could slowly, in a more analog way, like, phase in and out of actually being able to understand it.
For something that's a speech like that, yes, I think that one, it's sort of a voice actor special skill that to cut yourself off that without sounding like you're cutting yourself off or doing something like that where you can do a weird stop. So that's there, even if they don't have the copy written out. Option 2 is like, finish the word, we'll cut you off. if one fails, the fail safe is finish the word, we'll trim it. And for certainly, again, when no one else is interrupting you, you should just read the whole thing and just chop. But I will say that like in conversations, and this is why overlapping conversations and interrupting each other is like such a sophisticated, weird thing in games, is just has to do with the scripting and you have to cut yourself off or end, and then the next one fires, and there's that classic truck length gap between the two.
I hate it.
They
do it in this section. I think there's a section with Joker where it's just, especially with subtitles on, where it's just so jarring. You're like, all right, and count down 4 seconds for Ashley to interrupt him.
It's just, I think it's a scripting thing and a tech thing, and which is why I think Night School Studio has got some secret sauce there where things like After Party and Oxenfree sound really believable. And it just depends. I am pushing in some, for more natural overlapping, but it locks you into takes. There's less flexibility, especially if you're processing another voice. You can't have that overlap. So if like the person overlapping, like if Sovereign interrupted you, you would have an issue if you recorded them overlapping in that way. So it's just complicated. It's like Doors. I don't know. But
secretly complicated.
It's annoying.
Forrest with 2 R's submits a comment on Patreon saying, I have a friend that's very adamant that the canonical voice for Sovereign should be the German one. See, this is some good deepest dive stuff here. So this time I went through and listened to them all. English and German have the bass-like reverb on everything the Reaper says, but French and some other languages don't. It's kind of an interesting decision.
As a processing thing?
I don't know. Yeah, some of them have the reverb, some don't. But maybe just certain languages sound cool and you don't need the intimidation of the reverb or something. I don't know exactly what it is.
In France, a reverb on your voice is considered very rude.
It's very sexual. It's like not.
I liked in the Sovereign discussion, I like that he uses the phrase, we are Legion, which is like a fun connection maybe to the future of the trilogy, just a tiny bit. Which, by the way, Leo, get ready for this. Did you know that that's a biblical thing?
We are Legion?
Yeah, I guess New Testament, they meet some demon and he says, my name is Legion for we are many. I
wondered because I've seen that in other things too, and I guess they were all biblical.
Yeah. Joe?
I'm just surprised you didn't know that, I guess.
Oh, really?
No. Not to be a total like snob brainiac about it or whatever. I just kind of thought that was like, like a quote that people knew.
Yeah, someone hasn't been reading his Bible, right, Joe?
Oh, gee, guys. That's it. I'll read it a bunch tonight. We'll come back for the next episode.
I also, just another things that I hadn't caught playing the first time through that maybe cast ahead is just Saren's. We touched on it last time. Saren's whole, I don't know how to tip it. I don't want to tip it too far, but just the fact that his development physiologically is, to me, casts ahead to questions and to dilemmas that are going to be more.
Oh, sure, I hear you.
I know exactly what you're talking about. There's even one specific line that he says that really resonates with one of the endings of Mass Effect 3. That is
right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Kind of puts his finger on a scale there, maybe, as far as. But again, and I thought it, and I got mad at people who got mad at the ending all over again.
Right.
It's in the text. Ugh.
Leo, we'll stop winking and nodding now. We promise about the future. My main question from that Sovereign conversation is, what happens at the end of it? Like, he's like, all right, goodbye. And then just like all the windows shatter. It's like, did he do that? Or was I missing something? Was like the attack so great that it busted every window in that room?
Joker calls you and says that Sovereign pulled a hairpin turn that would shear off or like, other ships in half. So I don't know how close Sovereign was physically to that location.
Okay.
Wherever he was.
So some sonic boom or something like that. Okay. That's good enough for me. That sounds good.
I'll buy that.
Yeah. I love the idea though. that he establishes here of the fact that, you're just all pawns. We have dictated your entire evolution. And I love just that simple idea of them placing the mass relays in very specific places to be like, yeah, you think you're like exploring uncharted worlds. We're telling you exactly where to go and when you're going to be interacting with the other races to evolve in this certain way. It's perfect.
That was very cool.
Go ahead. Yeah.
That's all I had to say.
Which is, I thought, I was sitting there thinking like, oh, it's like a video game. Like, I was like, it's like what a game designer thing to, right? Because, all you have are affordances. And like, I guess the tension between individualism and systems. I'm always fighting with my brother, who's much more of an exceptionalist in life than I am. And I'm much more of like, look at the systemic forces that are making all of this happen. And so like, to me, like, but games is what taught me that. Games is what taught me systems literacy and the idea that you get this outcome averaged over time based on what you can do and what the parameters are and the power of that. And so I was like, yeah, it's a game. And then I patted myself on the back and I went to sleep. I don't know.
Naturally.
And I think, like, to me, that revelation is sort of like what makes the Reapers the scariest as villains, because like it's not just the reveal, the sort of like plan within a plan, right? Of like, you've been doing what we wanted you to do all along. But that's sort of nestled in the idea of like every civilization for millions of years has been doing what we wanted to do. Like, we have eradicated so many civilizations just like yours using this exact same method. I think
it's so much scarier than indoctrination, because that's just proximity. But you're trying to play a game against people who made the board. It's great.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the moment when you find out the Protheans saved your ass already, like the fact that they already sent out the signal for the invasion, but the Protheans were ahead of it and like had the hack set up or whatever. That was like a chilling moment.
Yeah.
The Protheans become so cool once you start talking to Vigil. So it's so awesome. Anyway.
Why do you think Sovereign was the one to stay behind? Did the Reapers just realize that he was a weirdo, that he was too into how powerful the Reapers were?
No, I mean, they talk about that they need to leave one behind as a sentinel to decide when the rest should return.
So it's just what do you think? They draw straws with their giant Reaper hands?
I prefer to think that they're all more or less the same, but that Sovereign's time having been left behind it makes him weird. It makes him weirder over time. That's my headcanon.
Yeah, I like that. Kate Gronlund, let's just jump to these freaky things. It says, talking with Vigil on Elos is one of my favorite memories from any game. While it is essentially an exposition dump, it is handled so beautifully by the perfect music that accompanies the sad tale of a civilization wiped to extinction and the final gamble they took so there might be hope for the future. Absolutely. Like, this is basically part 2 of that just exposition dump, but it's also fascinating. You don't really mind it. And this is where it gets into the weird story of the Keepers, right? I think this is where they start talking about the fact that the Keepers were like probably the first race that rose up that the Reapers tried to wipe out. And now I was a little confused about this and the way they explained it about like, the Keepers just take care of the Citadel, and they were maybe indoctrinated, but over time they kind of evolved to just kind of listen to the Citadel's needs instead of being directly Reaper controlled, probably just so players don't have to be mad at them and try and pull their gun on them in the Citadel over and over again. But it's just that weird evolution of like, they've kind of changed throughout the years and now they're just running on autopilot as the freaks.
It's to simplify what you have to achieve in that end game is it's not about murder. It's not about murdering every Keeper and you're like, oh, this is hopeless. Like the Citadel will fall apart if the Keepers are gone and then we have to kill them. It's like, you just have to get that control, the one handy dandy control panel. That's it. That will dictate everything else.
Yes.
I don't think the Reapers are necessarily like, I guess I don't know exactly how this was explained. I don't think the Keepers evolved in a way that the Reapers did not want or did not predict, right? I think that it's maybe the logic of the Keeper's main purpose is to maintain the Citadel so that other races never learn how it works.
Yeah.
So if their need is to respond to the Citadel, but then the Reapers basically control the Citadel themselves anyway, then what need is there to control the Keepers directly, right?
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, I remember I was curious what the details were, because I definitely remembered it being, I don't know if you want to call it a twist, the idea of like, the keepers were evil the whole time. But it is so weird in retrospect just to look at like, yeah, those freaks that you went around and tried to count, those were incredibly crucial to the origin of the entire thing, even more so than the Protheans. It's nuts.
Yeah.
Like I was trying not to be all like too winky nudgy, but like when you have the keeper counting scanning quest and like, or just passing, there's that ambient conversation on the Presidium where they're like, they moved my office like 5 times this week. I don't know what's going on. And then like, nobody knows. Like they did seed it. And you're like, ooh, it is weird that they do all this stuff and no one can stop them or ask them questions or any of it. So it's very gently like, foreshadowed for you. I also just want to point out how lovely it is that like talking to Vigil, like there's that music cue itself is a payoff, that's been seeded early and like immediately when you start the game, and then you're like, oh, it's all of that. I don't know. It's just ways of layering that impact was so clever and like lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, Leo, I want to know your thoughts on this particular part, because as someone who's played Mass Effect and the trilogy several times, it's like I knew what Vigil was telling me. At some like, what was your journey through that conversation in the sense of like, I guess the main question is like, was it just too long?
No, I didn't feel that way. At least I've enjoyed that throughout this whole game, talking with the Sovereign and everything too. Just like, I can ask clarifying questions if I want to, or I can just move on if I'm not interested. And I asked exactly as many as I was interested in, which was a lot for both of those conversations.
Yeah, I do like with Vigil, you can like walk away, and I don't know if it's Liara or whoever is like, hey, you can actually like ask a lot of questions to an ancient civilization right now. You should maybe ask a few more, please.
I got real testy with her. I was like, we are on a clock. She was like, okay, it's my life, but fine.
But I like that they go out of the way to explain that like Vigil, he's like, I only know about, sustaining life for the Protheans in this very specific thing. So he basically says like, Liara, don't bother asking me anything about the Protheans. I only know about this tiny slice of the pie.
Oh, I didn't have her with me in that part. I forget what her conversations are like.
She doesn't.
Obviously, she would go nuts for that.
She
stuff.
does. She
oh my God,
should.
we stay here forever. Like basically,
she doesn't really do it. Like I think throughout the entire trilogy, I'm always kind of disappointed that Liara doesn't geek out more about the Prothean stuff. There's definitely a little bit like when you're driving the Mako around that long hallway. She's like, wow, this Prothean architecture and stuff like that. When they finally do talk in the Mako, everything that we wanted, it's kind of that one section. It's all reserved for that. So there's a little bit there, but she doesn't even really talk to Vigil in a direct way.
That was funny when Vigil was like, I listened to your conversations to translate into a language you'd speak. And it was like, you heard us say 3 sentences in the elevator?
Right.
So one weird thing for Vigil, just a dumb aside, is that like I was so sure when I played this game for the very first time, with all of the references that they made to Commander Shepard being Jack Bauer in space prior to the release of Mass Effect.
Was that like in the language? Was that the PR?
Yeah, it was like part of the, I mean, it wasn't even PR. I think it was like one of the doctors at BioWare had sort of said like, one of the concepts behind it is Jack Bauer in space to sort of sell, I think, the renegade Paragon dichotomy there, right?
Yep.
I like Renegade though. The Renegade.
Paragrade.
I'm calling Renegade. Yeah. Anyway.
But I was so sure that Vigil's voice was Kiefer Sutherland.
Oh, wow.
The first time I heard it. And I mean, I listen to it now and it's obviously not him, but I can still see how I would have been like, if you want to think that, you can listen to it and get moments of like, I think that's Kiefer Sutherland.
It sounds like a punished snake to me if you listen closely. Adam Wagner, who knows? Wagner writes in and he says, did anyone else have a tough time looking at Vigil? I screen peeked my way through the dialogue options, trying my best to get away from him. Then finally, just as it was wrapping up, Liara says, this may be the last chance we have to learn about the Protheans. I took a deep sigh and kept going in the name of science. But he's talking about just like how flashy he is. It really is a lot. Maybe I was just playing in a dark room, but it definitely was, I had to look away. And then it's the fun thing of like looking at the rest of my room while I'm playing in the dark and it's just like a strobe light.
Wow.
I mean,
mine doesn't,
Yeah, no, maybe not.
I didn't notice that. I didn't notice that at all. It wouldn't surprise me if in 2007, EA was not especially diligent about, epileptic warnings for, all of their games and stuff. But in like 2021, especially some of the stuff that went down, with games last year, I feel like I feel like for something like in a remastered edition, that would be something that they would be on top of.
You'd think so. And I have no idea of what's triggering and all that stuff. But I just noticed that it's kind of tough to look at.
I wonder if that's another console PC difference. And then I also have like night mode or like easy on your eyeballs mode on my computer to begin with. So maybe that, I don't know.
Yeah. Or maybe HDR is what Backstage Pass people watching us live are guessing. Jordan Holmdahl writes in and says, shout out to the small team of surviving protein scientists, the forgotten heroes of Mass Effect. Also, P.S. Ben, there's a good chance you'd enjoy The Expanse. Yeah, probably.
Have you seen The Expanse?
No. Is it good Mass Effect stuff?
Yeah, I would say. It took me a little longer than maybe most people think you need to hook into it. I think I probably compared this on the first episode where like, what I love about Mass Effect is like the sci-fi is pretty well thought through and really thorough and hooky, but then also the characters are what I'm here for. I need characters to hook into right away, or I'm like, okay, fine, you wrote a wiki, that's fine. But so it took me a lot longer to kind of warm up to the characters in The Expanse. But if you stay in it, it just gets better. It's really refreshing to watch a TV show that just gets better and better. It's really good.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, not to turn it into like the Expanse fan cast here or anything, but I haven't finished what's available yet. I'm near the end of season 4 of it, but I got started on it based on the recommendation of my old coworkers, Matt Miller and Andy McNamara, who were both just like really, really selling me on it. And I think the connection to Mass Effect is a very common one that people bring up, and it's hard to see at first. Or at least it was for me. I think I'm kind of like Sarah. I didn't especially like it. Felt like a cheapish sci-fi show for the first season or so to me, and then like later on, it really starts tapping into some of those like thematic and narrative elements that I love about Mass Effect also. So yeah, it's a good thing to roll into if you like Mass Effect and you're like, I want more things like this, but that aren't Mass Effect video games. That's a good place to go.
Definitely. And you have a little bit of world overlap in that Shohreh Aghdashloo is in both and great.
Oh, there we go.
In both.
Hey, Sarah.
She's not in Mass Effect 2. But yeah, she's great. Anyway.
Did you think about the name Saren a lot while playing this game and that your name is Sarah?
I think that's just you, honey.
Okay. Like, you don't think of like your actions in the past, you're Saren around or anything?
You mean like, is it a verb?
I don't know. The point is,
Saren.
Let's go back.
Do I walk around Saren? Is that what I do?
I guess that's the question.
Just Saren all day.
And I'll take my answer off the air. Okay, bye. Let's go back to Vermeer here.
All right. Cool.
All right, we land on Vermeer for the big mission. I do love the idea that, like, Saren, some twisted perspectives on the world, but if he has to choose a home base, he's like, let's go to that freaking tropical island planet. This place is sweet. He's just sipping sugar drinks, feet up on the beach. It's a great place.
Now I'm only thinking that Saren is my Karen form, and that's upsetting. I don't like that at all.
He is the ultimate Karen.
If I go back to get my coffee order fixed, I'm being Saren. That's awful. Anyway, all right.
I do love the idea of Saren using his weird Geth arm to eat a shrimp cocktail somehow. His big glowy mandibles trying to work those out.
Oh, it's beautiful. I love. I don't think it's the sound of warfare in the distance. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I love on this planet that, especially when you're making some big decisions, they just have thunder rolling in the background, which is such a cool combination with the kind of tropical island paradise. It all looks great, but there is some real stuff going down here. We're going to try and seed it emotionally any way we can. Also,
this is one of my huge weaknesses. I actually tweeted about this recently. I unironically just love it when there is a storm coming in a narrative, both literally and figuratively, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. It's even better if characters call attention to it. If they're looks like there's a storm coming, and the other one's just yep.
You're right.
Love it. Yeah.
This is good writing. Maybe they even wanted the Vermeer to build in that way. It would be kind of cool if there was a tropical storm that was really whipping up by the end of the mission or something. Maybe that was somewhere in the concept.
Holding Ashley Arcade and no!
Right, then they get sucked into the tornado and they're gone forever. God, I love in this mission too, just driving the Make around, and there's that moment, I think it's on Vermeer, where the Normandy flies overhead anytime they
Yeah.
like connect in gameplay to just something of massive scale, it's so awesome. Even just like a Geth ship coming in or flying overhead throughout the entire game, it's so cool.
I think that there is a clear line in this game where like BioWare knew where to funnel its resources, right? It's like that middle chunk of the game that we finished for the last episode was a lot of just like kind of not procedural, but like some cookie cutter elements going on in terms of quest and environment design. But it's clear that they were like, okay, we're in Virmire, we're in the lead up to the game. We need to like spend some money to make this cinematic and awesome. And I think like moments like that, like suddenly you see the Normandy and you're like I remember like I was just very surprised. I heard some big loud thing and then saw it and was like, oh, that's right. I have a spaceship that actually flies around. It doesn't just get docked and then wait for me to solve someone's problems before I can leave again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Also, I like
and then
just
messing with it later in later entries. Oh my god! But speaking of scale, did anyone have their mind like multiple blown in a row in the assault on the Citadel, where you're like,
yes,
oh, okay, here's the Destiny Ascension, okay, and then here's the smaller fighters and frigates, and then okay, there's a Geth ship. Oh god, there's Sovereign. Oh god, those are the arms. It's just a lot kind of in a row. I feel like
I'm such a sucker. It's like a secret superpower in games, or just a really impactful thing when you're in the environment with a big bad and not fighting them.
It's fun.
Like, I forget if we talked about this, but definitely talked about it in the deepest dive in Arkham Asylum. But I love like being in the room next to Joker as Batman. There's just something so powerful about that. Or like even in the last episode, like turning that corner and Matriarch Benezia is just there in gameplay. And it's like, oh my God, they're actually here. It's just so rare to see a villain outside of combat, because normally it's like, all right, well, try to come up with a reason why you can't punch them and attack them right now. And when the games can do that, I think it's so fun. And I think
you wait and cover and have your conversation there.
Right. Yep. Exactly. It's gentleman's warfare. I think you got to have a nice, polite conversation in cover first before you pop out. Leo, Virmire, baby.
Virmire, my deepest dive tidbit is when you go out of bounds, you just fall straight down like normal gravity, and through the water you see underneath the mountains and everything.
That's beautiful. And that's where Saren's secret base is?
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. How did the whole thing go for you? When you got there, started talking to the Solarian, he was talking about the genophage. How did that unravel for you?
Kirahi.
Sorry, give the man his respect.
That was really interesting. The conversation with Rex, talking through that, clearly so personal to him in a way that I understood and was set up so many hours ago, made that conversation awesome. And I was just like praying I could find a way to make it make sense for him to go along with me. And then when that charm option came up, it was a big sigh of relief. I feel like when games truly make me feel something, it's few and far between these days. And I think it's notable when it happens. And that was truly like, they got me there. And I was very glad I could save Rex.
Yay! Oh, I'm glad you could.
So you knew that there was a possibility that he could die there?
That's like the main thing I heard about the end of this game was like, do you save Rex or not? So I was prepared to possibly lose him there for sure.
Yeah.
So wait, had you done his side quest?
No. I tried to start doing the personal stuff after last episode, but I was too close to the end. I didn't really get any traction.
So you
going.
just had enough. What did you have enough of to persuade him?
I guess just charm.
Yeah, because you're rolling Paragon.
Yeah, I'd love to figure out the math of what it takes to make this happen. But yeah, like the first time I played the game back in the day, I role played my Shepherd as, Paragon, but on the genophage stuff, like, let's go ahead and keep those Krogans down. And it was really just like a random thing of like, that'd be interesting to play it this way. What could it hurt? And it turns out it is the most damaging thing for this moment. And so I've been hell-bent this entire playthrough on trying to recreate what happened to me that first time because it was so incredibly impactful. And so that's why I've been trying to be very nice to Ashley, pretending we're best buds because I want to be on good terms with her. And I've been crapping all over Rex every opportunity, even though I like Rex, just because I want to recreate the magic. And so the magic then is, in this big sequence on Virmire, is Rex very understandably, like that conversation with the Solarian kills me when he's talking about like, hey, we got a cure for the genophage. And he keeps talking about the Krogan. And then Rex is like, hang on a second, we aren't a problem here, sir, basically. And this Larian doesn't even address him. He just like keeps plowing past, like, yeah, these Krogan, like I was telling you, Shepard, like he is such a dick to Rex. It's just perfect. And then Rex goes over and just starts shooting fish in the water. So you can go over, talk to Rex. And before you do that, you can talk to Ashley and Caden. And I said, like, hey, Ashley, like, look alive type of thing. Just trying to set it in a very reasonable way and then go over. And what I love about it so much is you have the option of signal Ashley to kill Rex as one of the options in the dialogue wheel. It's like, well, that's insane. Of course, I'm not going to do that. And the option I chose both times is just, we can work this out. That is just like middle of the path. We can work this out. Choose that. And then Rex is like, yeah, I don't think we can. And then bam, bullet in the back of the head. Ashley kills him. And then Ashley comes up and it's like a scene from Goodfellas or something. She's like, evil eyes. And she's just like firing into his body.
Oh my God.
And then you're just standing over Rex's corpse and there's blood coming out. And you can do, very strangely, basically the same sequence that you did with Rex earlier on the Citadel of just like, hey, I'm the commander. You don't do that crap without my permission. All right, anyways, moving on. And then all the other people on your crew are like, yeah, it had to be that way. Wish it didn't. Like Garrus in particular is like, yeah, makes sense. He had to go down. And even Liara, like the big softie, is like, well, what are you going to do? Like, it's really crazy how just callous everybody is. Sorry, I've been talking for a long time.
At some point, though, like
I'm literally clutching my pearls.
you do have a giant Krogan who was determined to attack you, right?
Yes.
So it's like, if people are offering commentary on what happened in that specific moment, it's like, well, yeah, what are you going to do? Let Rex kill Commander Shepard, the only person who can stand against this Reaper threat?
To be fair, though, Rex doesn't even like pull his gun. He's standing there with his gun down saying like, I can't live with this Shepard. It's something to that effect is kind of his last line.
Oh, I thought he pulled his shotgun.
Ooh, okay, hang on.
That conversation that you are standoff.
Yeah, you're totally right. I'm way off. Yeah, so he does have the gun drawn and they are in that face-off thing, but it's not like he's reaching for it right before Ashley takes the shot. Like he doesn't really make any move other than just talking before Ashley.
And you're like, we have a signal. We have a signal. Oh my God, I don't know.
But I
That's
love
intense.
that Rex dialogue is so good where he's like, Saren wanted to cure the genophage. And then this line in particular just kills me. He goes, help me out here, Shepard. Yeah. The line between friend and foe is getting a little blurry from where I'm standing. Like that helped me out. It's like, I love it so much.
It's brilliant. And his performance is so great.
Yeah.
It's so charismatic.
It's so,
you're right. It doesn't make sense, Rex. It does. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's so deeply personal to him in a way where when I didn't end up with him dead, he was like, I want Saren. I want to be the one who brings him down. And I'm like, absolutely. This is Rex's story. Like, this is so much more important to him than it is to me. And then it was disappointing in both Saren boss fights. He never said a word until I killed him and he came up and just shot him in the head. Still never said a single thing. I was excited for that confrontation. That didn't really happen. So I've never seen what is Rex like as a character? Because for me, he's just canonically dead right here forever. Wow. I mean, is there any payoff?
You did it again. I can't believe you did it twice.
Well, it's like, if you had the option to redo the Red Wedding, would you? It's like, yeah, it's brutal, but that's the impactful gut punch. That's why I love this series, is it can make me feel like such a...
You've seen it. You don't want to see the other...
No, I'm nostalgic for the pain. I don't know.
I do want to say...
Jesus, okay.
I do want to say in that vein, though, like something games do that is pure magic to me is like when I know a character actually could have died, I instantly care about them so much more. Mm-hmm. And that happened with Rex, obviously. And it happened when I chose to save Caden's life. Like when we got back to the ship and we're talking and ended up romancing, it was like that felt very natural. And I cared about it a lot more than I would have if he's just, it can only ever get knocked unconscious and revived at the end of a fight,
Yeah, it was such a big bummer. I remember, Joe, on that Mass Effect Andromeda cover story trip, like one of the tidbits we learned is they're like, oh yeah, your characters can't die in any way in this game. And that just felt like such a weird mistake and such like a deflating of the hype for that game ahead of time. Because it's effectively a little bottle game. Like they weren't planning on making a new trilogy. It's like they had the opportunity to make that kind of like a Rogue One style mission and just have this really impactful thing where a lot of the characters could die. And the fact that they're all safe for what purpose? I don't know.
Unless it's a dog, unless it's someone's pet dog
Right.
or whatever is cute alien. I don't want to know whether or not characters live or die. I want to know whether or not the cute dog is safe. But
Okay.
other than
Or the
that,
horse, a lot of horse gathering.
yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
you know, so like we were talking in the last episode, Ben, I liked the term that you used for it. After I gave some long-winded explanation about Batman, you referred to it as emotional new game plus.
Right.
The idea that after you've played a whole series like Mass Effect or played games multiple times, you come into it with a sort of, you bring into it the knowledge that you had before. So you can't build from square one again. But I tried my best playing through this game to put myself in that sort of square one mentality as much as I could, to like analyze how does this game actually build these relationships. So like we talked about in the last episode, how some of the romances feel like weird and rushed and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think under that kind of scrutiny, I think the only character, like the only relationship between Shepard and any of the crew members that I still love and that I think feels authentic to me is Shepard and Rex. The other ones all feel a little video gamey and like transactional to me.
Yeah.
But I think to me, what makes it work so well, just to your question on like what Rex is like as a character. I mean, obviously you've had the conversations with him down in engineering or whatever.
Yeah.
But what I think really makes him stand out and be believable as a character is he never pretends that his relationship with Shepard is anything more than it is, right? There's always just that like Rex, Shepard.
Yeah.
All right. And it's like, hey, I'm a mercenary. I'm here for this. Or like you said, help me out here, Shepard. All of this stuff where it's like on some level, our relationship is we are business professionals doing something together. And maybe we're getting a little closer, but like you're making this hard on me sometimes. I think that interaction on Vermeer is what cements, I mean, unless you kill him, is what cements it going forward as like more than just this like business relationship between Shepard and this mercenary who's on his ship, you know?
And I think going out of your way to help him with this armor, you're like, yeah, we can make time for that, is really primes that in a way that does tip it into like, because if you have to believe, I think it's kind of important, or my headcanon finds it important in leading up to Vermeer, because like, why does he trust you to like unpack this? Like why does he trust you suddenly as a leader and not as a job, or not as like what deepens his trust in you specifically, and to follow you and not just like work with you kind of. And so like making time for that. And I don't know. And just like the fact that he's so gruff and like, I don't care about anything or anybody. And there's all these like this like tiny core of sentimentality you can just barely begin to see with the armor and with everything, and just his complicated relationship to Krogans as a community. Which, by the way, if you're wondering what he's like as a character, that will develop.
Right.
But yeah, like you just sort of, that's a really good point that he, that because it starts out with like, where there isn't this shorthand of like, should I be assuming we've hung out around the cafeteria, or did we go sightseing or something I didn't see? Like,
he
there's
doesn't
none of that
hit on
Rex.
you after one conversation.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
There's none of that with Rex. Yeah. It's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually found that I had almost no hook into Tali. I tried to, like we talked, and I got some neat Quarian lore dump, but like aside from, and then we got her stuff from a really annoying side mission, but like there wasn't a lot for me to hook into.
It's really crazy.
That actually felt the least, and I brought her out the least.
Yep. Out of hundreds and hundreds of comments, maybe we had like one or two that mentioned Tali in passing, but there was not really any Tali love. I think she is more interesting and has some bigger moments later on in the trilogy, but it was striking that she's pretty under the radar here.
Did you guys see her face through her helmet?
I did, and I was annoyed by that.
You can see like the little outline thingy.
Yeah, in certain lighting, you can just see it. What I'm sure is not her real face. What is like a placeholder blank face from what you can see.
Yeah.
The empty eyeballs. I mean, I don't know what Tali really looks like, so maybe that's accurate, but that was very weird and distracting.
My memory is like that, a rough silhouette of kind of being able to see is more of something that you get a glimpse of in 3.
Right.
And then now they've added into this, and I was like, no.
I know. I think it's always the same. It's just kind of like a higher resolution, but it's It's not like you can
'Cause
really
I
see
don't remember
her.
being able to see her face at all.
I mean,
before.
to see her face is a stretch. It's just kind of like you see like some
see her
glimmering eyes.
screenshots.
Her features. No
Yeah.
features, just reflection.
Wait, yeah. So Leo, are you talking? You can like, you can see it as clearly as if her mask weren't there, or are you saying you see like a white sort of outline of
Right.
head and cheekbones and some white eyes?
Yeah, I see her face very dim of generic facial features. But yeah, it was like depending on the lighting. There was one cutscene where it was like, oh, this is clear as day.
She mentioned in her backstory something about like, oh, seeing my father smile meant so much to me or something like that. And I'm trying to remember on the flotilla, do they don't need to wear the masks? Is that the way that works?
Actually,
Or do they
when
wear
you
it all the
visit them, I
time?
think they are. So, aren't they?
I don't remember.
I mean,
I'm not trying to spoil anything ahead of time, but just I was trying to remember even in this world, if this, as they've established it so far, like whether or not that would be necessary. I don't know. Anyways, Derek writes in. He says, I hope everyone was able to save Rex. There's some people out there who don't think he's one of the greatest characters in the trilogy, and I cannot accept that slander. That's understandable, Derek.
Stand with you.
Deep Space Trace says, I really hated that I was forced to choose between either killing Rex or convincing him to forget about the genophage cure. I get that the cure is imperfect since it's turning the Krogans into slave warriors, but it represents too much hope for Rex's species to just be like, come on, dude, forget about saving your people forever and come shoot stuff with me. I could never have killed him, so I convinced him to come with me, but the choice still felt gross.
That's fair.
Hey, can I bring up one weird specific thing about Rex also?
Yeah.
We were talking about his family armor mission.
Right.
How big of a missed opportunity is it for him to just say, it's old broken family armor, it's no good in combat? It's like, I went on this whole mission to get this armor for you.
I know.
This armor should have great stats, it should be unique, and you should be able to wear it.
Yes. So many of those missions, I don't think I did the first time I played this game. Instead of doing them now with the expectation of like loyalty-esque missions from later on in the series, it's like they're so dry and blah. It's really barely anything. It's got the flavor text at the
advocate
end.
that one.
Really?
I'm going to say yes, because it's about the sentimental attachment to the armor. He knows it's a piece of garbage armor, and that's what's special and weird about his caring about it, because it's just a family heirloom. And so it's like, that's the fact that you go on this meaningless mission that has no gameplay or, frame device benefit to you or to him means you just did him a favor.
But what if
just a favor?
Could you have the combo of him going on that mission thinking it's just some family relic, and then he gets there and be
then it
like,
being
oh, now I
surprisingly
can fit
awesome.
into it,
Dope.
and now it's really cool, and it's plus 300 armor.
I mean, yes, you can. As a gamer, you can, and you would be right to enjoy that very much.
Thank you.
But I think, yes,
Correct.
I will not
Yes.
take that fun away from you. I get it. But I kind of like that it's just, do you give a toot about this character, and are you going to go out of your way to do something that doesn't really pay off, except for him?
Or after I do Tally's loyalty mission, then she sees his armor and is like, hey, I know all kinds of cool tech stuff. Let me forge you some cool armor out of
Write
it.
another Mass Effect.
Yeah, Joe, just in
Or like
your
an
free
alt
time.
version Mass Effect.
Yeah.
More
The
content.
real Mass Effect one. It's a real bummer, by the way, I gotta say. After Rex dies, as you continue playing the game, you keep finding sweet Krogan armor everywhere, and it's like, oh, bother.
You know who would have loved
Rex.
this?
It's the same way with heavy human armor for me.
Yeah, just as equally sad.
Yeah.
See, I knew that was coming, so I bought a pair. Or I didn't buy it, but I equipped Ashley with a pair of a set of Phoenix armor, that like dumb pink armor that she's equipped with at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
Wound. Why?
Yeah. Well, because when you lose that party member on Vermeer, you lose all of the gear that they're equipped with. So going into that mission, I was like, you're getting the Avenger 1 assault rifle. You're getting the...
I mean, I didn't go to the entry. I didn't go like entry level. But I did not. I stopped giving her the best guns. I did.
Yeah. And the weird pink Phoenix armor that no one else ever wears. You get
Space
this.
Mark.
It's perfect.
Give me that Colossus armor back. I don't even have anyone who can wear it, but I'll find someone.
Just in case somebody else stumbles by the ship and I want to recruit him. I think with Rex, I had to Google it, but I think you get all of his stuff back. There's a cruel scene where Caden is stripping him of parts as corpse. No, that's not true. So do you
Get a new hat that's his head thing. I'm Rex.
It's just like Christmas Carol with the people like who's sharing his clothes.
Howdy. Do you want to get into some real fun, sticky stuff?
Yeah.
I got a hell yeah from Leo. Joe Kevchinsky submits a comment on Patreon. Joe's squinting, saying the game's stance on the genophage is pretty clear. Anti-genophage is Paragon, pro-genophage is Renegade. But what exactly is the right way to deal with the Krogan problem? Just about any Krogan you talk to makes it clear that living in peaceful harmony with the other species is not on the table, and nothing short of full galactic conquest would be satisfactory if the Krogans were at full strength. The Solarians uplifted the Krogans, and the rest of the galaxy lives with the consequences. What would you do about the Krogans? Joe, eugenics, pro or con?
I also love how you call it the Krogan problem, which is
right. Starting there.
Loaded.
That's how they phrase it.
Oh God.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is like a lot of things when you split it up in Mass Effect as like Paragon, Renegade, good or evil. Like the issues that they put forward are complicated ones that they then try to distill down to, binary choices.
Yes.
Which I think, in a lot of ways shows the weakness of this old kind of approach to gaming morality choices.
Yeah.
I think that there are other problems with systems like The Witcher where, it's not clearly defined as good or evil. There's a lot more of like the gray space and for you having to decide what your choices mean in the context of the world. But there are problems in there from a gameplay perspective that's like, there are a lot of people who, when they make a choice, they also want to make the choice based on expectations of what they think will happen. And games that focus on that gray area, it's a lot harder to project that. So I guess the benefit in something like Mass Effect is when you do split it up, even though you lose the nuance of pro or con eugenics, you also get the benefit of players being confident that they are like crafting a character and ethos for Shepard that they align with, That's
what makes me wish the whole Paragon Renegade thing was based off of like allegiance to the council or something, besides kind of purporting to be a moral measurement.
That's a good idea.
You could be more promoted to make a choice that feels like the right choice for you, even though it's more morally gray.
How diplomacy versus vigilantism, like pure, one or the other.
Right.
Are you a collaborator or are you just steamrolling through the galaxy?
Right.
That's really interesting. I actually found the complexity, like because I earned more Renegade than I thought I was going to earn. I had maybe like a third and full Paragon, which gave me lots of, I didn't think I would have as many options having split my effort so much. And I think what's cool about it is if you actually just decide to play that way instead of falling into this obviously gamified thing that's reinforcing really extreme decisions and commitments. Like it just more of Shepard became so much more alive to me. Like it was someone who tried to do the right thing, but if you just tipped her out, like her trauma and her survival issues and everything else, like she would just, snap and turn on you if you push the issue. And that just felt like so much more of a dynamic. And I was surprised, and it all hung together really well. Again, credit to Jennifer and the writing, in the sense that like, it never was like I take glee in my sadism. It was just like still the same person, but who had less patience. And I found it really rewarding, actually. So I don't know if I'm saying that like the game should have labeling. I think actually, like, you're right. Like maybe just labeling it that differently and giving that different frame thing of like, yeah, I'll work with other people unless they mess with me.
Right.
Is more helpful without changing very much. I will say that like the way that Sarah, I know that Saren, not to take us on a detour.
Yeah.
Speaking of ethical stuff. The fact that Saren, if you like navigate that conversation with persuasion of either flavor, that he killed, and spoiler now, here we are, kills himself, right? That the Renegade option horrified me. It actually did something really interesting to the end of the game, because you basically tell him to kill himself.
Really?
Yeah, you're like, he's like, oh, it's too late for me. And he's all beautiful and touching. And then you're like, yeah, well, there's still one option if you've got the guts. And
Jesus
he
Christ.
shoots himself. Yeah, and so I was like, oh my God, and that's not the line. The line is like, it's never too late. I was just like, totally fine.
That was my resolution with Saren.
Yeah. And I was like,
line.
I thought that was going to be fine. And then it was like, you should just kill yourself. And I was like, oh my God. And I thought about it. I was like, am I going to replay this for that? But the end of the game was really interesting to me because I was like, why is my team not talking to me about this? Like, I was still shattered from what I had just said in the heat of the moment. And so everyone being like, congratulations, Shepard, you're the best. And then the like poster shot of you being like this. And I'm like, I'm horrified.
Oh my God.
I'm going to live thinking about this for like years. But it was interesting.
If you use the charm options in that final encounter, he still kills himself,
He
right?
does.
Yeah.
Same
Oh, yeah.
outcome.
You just charm him into killing himself
You're like,
instead
"No,
of trolling him
don't."
into killing himself.
Yeah, you're like, no, you can
Please.
still save yourself. And he's like, no.
Is there a way where he doesn't kill himself?
Not through
Yeah.
persuasion, I think. You
So
can
this
just fight
is-
him, right?
This is one of the areas where, like in my very first playthrough of Mass Effect, I did the kind of approach you guys are talking about, where it's like I just followed my heart, did what I wanted to do, and ended up with about 60% Paragon and 60% Renegade.
Yeah.
Right. But then that's the problem with a binary system like that, is for the people who live in the middle, they miss out on some cool options. I think I even mentioned this in the first episode a little bit. Like, if you don't have a charm or an intimidate high enough to get him to shoot himself there, you just have another boring fight with him. Like, he's basically the same as he was on Vermeer. He's just like flying around on his
Green
little
goblining.
on his little dumb saucer, and you like have to fight him there. But then you still have the fight with him below the chamber also. So it's just
Oh, interesting.
it's just a real letdown.
Yeah.
I think there's, again, I insist on devil's advocating all the time. It's like, this is
fine.
not even what I think. But nothing dramatic about that, having fought him. And then, because that, for all you know, that would be your climax. And for all you think, that's the climax of the game. And then, blah, blah, blah.
Except they still gray out the cool options that you can't choose. So
Which
you
sucks.
know you're missing
No, you
something
missed something.
awesome.
Yeah.
I guess that's true. Well, it's better than making him kill himself. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's intense.
You can sleep at night.
Yeah. We had a good, honest fight. Gosh darn it. Jesus. You know?
That's one of those, and maybe it's just the renegade path through that discussion. Because like, I remember like thinking back on my Paragon playthroughs of this when I persuaded him to do that. It felt a lot like I had a much better feeling about the way that worked from a Paragon standpoint. The sort of like, hey, do the noble thing here. You can still like redeem yourself. You don't have to go down as a villain here.
Yeah.
I think that made a lot more sense. Whereas like I felt it was real jarring here. Like I didn't even get a sense that my conversation with him was like coming to an end, right? It's just
Right.
like, I'm going to kill everyone, Shepard. No, don't do that. I have to do it. There's still one way out. Thank you, Shepard. Boom. It's like, what?
Even charming, it's still a little abrupt. I think that pivot to him just
That's
thanking
why I
you.
enjoyed this, because I started with a few charm options in this convo, and I was like, come on, man. And then he was like, and then he says, it's too late for me. And I'm like, well, you had a moment at our last confrontation where you could have gotten out still. So I am out of patience with you. He's like, no, it's too late. And so if I think I actually would have found at this stage in my life, continuing to baby him and be like, no, you can do it, like a little disingenuous. And so me finally, that's where that decision came out of like, you know what, man, fine. Like, you screwed up. You got yourself here. You had a moment. You had an out. I have tried talking to you. You're telling me it's too late and you can't resist him. Let's end this. And so like there was a kind of a nice shape to that convo, but it had both. I was using both options, which was kind of
That
nice.
is cool.
And we haven't talked about Saren's motivation reveal, right?
Before we get to that, can I get to this comment from Mike Poe? He just says, the moment I realized you could convince Saren to kill himself to escape his indoctrination, it changed the way I played these types of games forever. I now always max out speech skills in case my dedication is rewarded with being able to talk my way out of a final boss encounter. The chilling way in which Saren thanks you before taking his own life blows me away every time I see it. Bravo, BioWare. And during
I can't believe
Clire,
this 15-year-old game shocked me with that decision. I am still upset. I'm like still like affected. I was like, wow, that was so intense.
yeah, Doreen Clire writes in just asking, does it kind of undermine your charm points or intimidate, I guess, she says, with that second phase of the Saren boss fight? The fact that like, no matter what, you're going to have to fight him. So how much does it really matter?
I guess at that point though, it's like you're fighting Sovereign there.
Yeah,
You're
right.
not like there's an idea of Saren redeems himself or doesn't, but you still have to fight Sovereign either way.
Right. Should we just keep working through Vermeer, then we'll get to the Saren motivation here, where he kind of has this big monologue here?
Hey, it felt like a great segue to me, but you're the boss here.
Honestly, I heard that segue. I was horrified, Leo. I was panicking. I wanted to stop that train no matter what happened. I was diving in front of it. Anyways, let's see. E.N.T. Clark. Oh, actually, let's just do this one since it kind of related to something we talked about earlier. Troy Ellison is asking, was there an option to talk to the Krogan doctor on Vermeer? I accidentally stumbled into him while navigating the base and saw he was a named character, but everything with him only resolved in combat. Given the previous scene with Rex on the beach, I felt more could have been done with this confrontation other than just a combat scenario, especially since Rex was in my party. Yeah, that guy
shouts some interesting dialogue at you when he's coming at you.
Yeah, he goes, "This is the glorious salvation of my species," as he charges you. It definitely felt like there could have been a conversation. Maybe there was, and it was cut. Because I like this as like a follow-up too. There's a conversation with Rex where Shepard brings up the point like, yeah, this genophage sounds rough, but why are you all just continuing to fight? Why not put like a couple of Krogan scientists on the idea of curing this? And Rex is like, we're not scientists, we're fighters. And it's like, what are you talking about? This is all important. So now here's like an actual scientist Krogan going for it, and then they're just immediately killed.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there is more of a backstory there, but I would love to learn the saga of Dr. Droyus, I think his name is.
Yeah,
it's tragic.
I just don't remember. I shot him. He attacked whatever circumstances I had set up going into that room. He attacked me on site. So
yeah, he wanted to be the first Krogan scientist, but couldn't resist charging at you and firing.
We're soldiers, not scientists, Shepard. Put me out of my misery. I'm an abomination.
Oh no! I wanted a different job, and this is my punishment.
I'm amazed that Rex doesn't really talk more about it. Like everything's really just kind of resolved on the beach about him being like, I know it's a tough spot, but I guess Saren's the number one mission, so time to take out the genophage cure. He really is just okay with it by and large?
Well, the excuse, or I guess the way you convince him is by saying that like this is not a future for the Krogan that you want, because them being slaves that work for the Reapers.
Right. Okay.
He outlines it in that conversation, and I kind of wish you had laid it out in that conversation, because he says like, right, I don't want us to be slaves to them, and like that we were uplifted by the Solarians, and look how that turned out, and like this is just the same. But I wish we had articulated. I'm not sure that Shepard articulated that in our conversation, which would have been the way to do it.
Yeah.
But he gets it. That's his approach.
And Joe, just because you weaseled out of it before, how would you solve the Krogan population issue?
I feel like there's got to be a diplomatic solution to that issue, right? Like, I guess I don't buy the game's premise that all Krogan are warlike, and if you cure the genophage, they will just inevitably like multiply and kill everything, right? Like they're a sentient race capable of compassion and thought. It's not like they're just insects. Which is but like kind of how the game paints them, is that they just like multiply and take over. So I think,
do they lay eggs, which would make the multiplying thing faster?
That's a good question. I don't remember how.
They do multiply pretty quickly.
I do know they have 4 balls. That's definitely a big thing they hit on here. The 4 quads.
Right in the quads.
Yeah.
Is it a fertility? Right. Anyway.
Anyways.
But that's I think that what is maybe the saddest and most interesting part about Rex to me is that he has internalized. He believes that to be true. Like he is jaded in this entry where he believes that there's no, no diplomatic way forward, and that Krogan as a species are just aggressive, and there's nothing to be kind of done about it, which may or may not change in him over time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Aaron T, watching us live here, points out that, it's weird to set them up that way as kind of the bloodthirsty, only care about combat, not really much of a, introspective species. But yeah, Aaron T says it's weird to set them up the way and then have Rex in your party, who is basically the opposite of that. Like he's the most sensitive, like thoughtful person on your party in a lot of ways, So it's a weird dichotomy there that he's
self-doubt.
It's self-doubt, and it's like internalized racism. It's like really
interesting,
unfortunate.
Yeah,
and it's built in his anecdotal history. It's his history with it too. But it's a bummer.
Yeah. E.N.T. Clark writes in on Patreon and says, "Let's hear it for Captain. Help me, sir. Karache.
Kirihe.
I actually just checked. I was like, is that a reference to curry? But isn't that Currahee like the Band of Brothers 3 miles out the camp that they?
Oh,
maybe.
wow.
Oh, I don't know that.
Interesting.
Anyway.
I bet it was, honestly.
Band of Brothers is great, but Currahee's hilarious. We should talk about his and wonderful and terrible. He's all of the things. He gives good speech. He's he's racist.
Yes, Ian T. Clarke is in love with the hold the line speech, which I'm sure a lot
He's
of
so funny and great.
I'm sure people were posting that for the GameStop stock thing, and I missed it. But like calling back to his hold the line speech seems relevant. Go ahead.
We have a thing. It's like I have some friends of mine also played a lot of Mass Effect. They were already my friends. These were not friendships forged in Mass Effect. So my previous answer stands. But there sort of became like a joke that developed among us that if there was anyone who was like in a game or even like in shows, if there's anyone who we just thought was a total loser that we wanted to get killed off, we would say that person belongs on the Solarian team. Which is just like your way of saying like, this is whichever party member I don't care about that I'm probably going to let die later. You go on this. You go with Captain Kirrahe. You're on the Solarian.
We really care about you, but just go over there. Just go down that alley. You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
That's very funny. Craig Belmont
Did
wrote
everyone
in.
do that?
Oh, what's that?
Did everyone send the crew member that they wound up leaving with Kirrahe?
I felt terrible and like an idiot because the dialogue prompt there just says, all right, final call. And it says, take Ashley or take Caden. And I'm like, wait, is this me saying you take them or is this me taking them for myself? So I accidentally sent my girl Ashley like, oh Christ, no. But then I remembered I don't have to pretend to like Ashley anymore because she already did the thing that I wanted her to do. So it's like, okay, you go over there, you're fine. But I forgot about the double twist then where you still get the choice later on.
Right,
so it's a really smart way to double check you.
Yeah. And I think it's really nice that, I mean, I was personally very narratively satisfied with having sent her because she died defending an alien team. She like gave her life to support and protect. Yeah.
Except for the fact that for me, I then went back on it and totally had Caden die in that situation, which then it's very funny because then talking to Ashley on the ship afterwards, nobody talks about Rex, by the way, which is very upsetting. Like I was storming up to Ashley ready to scream at her more. And it's just like this thoughtful conversation where she talks about Caden and she goes, I just don't want any deaths on my hands. I feel terrible about it, Shepard. Only talking about Caden. Where it's like, you just put a gun to the back of your friend's head. Like, what are you talking about? It's crazy.
They don't count. And you're like,
Right. Please stop talking, Ashley.
Yeah, stop.
Leo, what was your saga with that choice?
I sent Ashley off fully ready for her to die there, and then when it came to make the decision, I saved Caden. And after that mission, it went really smoothly through me and Caden's conversation of like remembering and mourning Ashley into like we're bonded by this trauma into let's bone on the way to Ilos.
Yeah. So you knew about Rex. Did you know that you had to choose between one of them?
No, and that makes me the fact that people in the chat have said Rex can be in Mass Effect 3. Like the idea that you make decisions in this game where characters are just in or not in 2 other games. I guess all I've heard is people complain about your choices not mattering enough, and that sounds like a really cool case of choices mattering a lot.
Yes, because some choices do matter. That's why we're defenders of Mass Effect. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean this doesn't spoil anything specific about upcoming like the other games, but I just think that's one of the things broadly. If you've heard complaints about the ending of Mass Effect, what people are talking about is sort of like the last 15 minutes of the game. But really, and this is, I mean, my opinion on this, and people can form their own thoughts. Everyone's opinion is valid, whatever. Mass Effect 3 is the ending that everyone wanted because it's stuff like that, Leo, that you're talking about. You just see all of these little choices, and it's not even like they have huge impacts, but it's like, oh, here's a character that might live or die in Mass Effect 1, even a minor character that is like suddenly showing up again. Or maybe you just hear about that person. It's like, oh, I let that person live in Mass Effect 1. And then you hear in a news report in Mass Effect 3, like this character was shot and killed in a research facility. It's like, like it wraps up like large and small threads like that in ways. So if you've heard complaints about the ending of Mass Effect 3 and that your choices don't matter, if you view the third game as a whole as the payoff for the things that you've done already, for me anyway, that outlook makes that third game just like, it basically just feels like you're playing through a big like 30-hour epilogue or something that was very rewarding for me.
Same.
Yep, absolutely. Aaron T submits a comment on Patreon saying, I think it's interesting that the pivotal who lives and who gets left behind choice is between the only two human characters in your party. Do you think this was to amplify the importance of the alien characters by ensuring that you aren't forced to lose one of them? Or is this an attempt to try to make the human characters feel more important? I imagine BioWare must have known that the aliens would be more popular, and I felt like there was some plot armor at play here. Thanks for another awesome Deepest Dive, and extra thanks to Joe and Sarah for being such insightful, enthusiastic guests.
Oh,
Look at that.
Thank you.
very nice. Thank you.
It's a good
I think
question.
it might have equally been the fact of they were your first two characters in your party,
Yeah.
right? So it's a tie for. I guess they could see it as, it's the toughest choice. The two characters you've known equally long.
Yeah, I agree with Leo. I think that that's what it is. I think that even though the aliens are like more popular in a broader sense, I think that because Caden and Ashley have been with you the whole time since the first like 10 minutes of the game, that is a choice that is the most likely to leave you torn, right? I mean, I think for most people it would be, especially with the substance they give you on these characters in Mass Effect, it wouldn't really be hard to choose between like Rex and Liara or something. It's like Rex is clearly cooler.
Well,
From what you get in Mass Effect 1,
Sure.
a disclaimer, whatever.
I think that they are designated as your people. Like you come to feel like everyone's a crew. I think believably, in aliens included. Aliens, I keep calling them that. Whatever, aliens included. By the end of the game, but like your crew, your Normandy crew is like you and these two human beings. And also, I think it ties into the question of like, or it feeds into this larger question of, is humanity out for itself, or is it going to step up and sacrifice for a greater cause and for a larger community that we're just joining? And so having human loss, whether it's there on the small scale or in the larger scale later in the big battle, I think that's kind of the question of like, how much do you see, who is your people?
right.
And who do you see as your people kind of being a
That's
question?
a really good point.
That is super smart. Isn't there a way, Joe, Mr. MinnMax himself, of course, one end, of course, to save both of them?
No.
Oh, really? I always thought there was like, isn't there some way I could hack the system and keep them both? So no matter what, you got to lose one.
You can't sprint long enough to get between them.
unless you are literally hacking, like unless you're using mods on the PC version
Okay.
that would somehow like
Glitching it.
reinstate someone in your party after they've left.
That'd be
Right.
fun.
There'd be
But
no
I mean,
context
there is no,
and they're dumb.
in terms of the narrative, yeah, one of them dies there always.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, Leo, I feel like you could have saved one if you just asked Saren like 2 fewer questions. The idea that it's like after that long discussion with Saren, then it's like, oh crap, we're out of time. Caden, like it's crazy. It's just crazy out there. Let's see.
Real quick, I want to say too, remember how the last episode I was talking about, I had this problem with Ashley because because I didn't explicitly shut her down, I found myself in a romance with her.
Yes.
That problem is solved.
She's quite exploded.
Yeah.
Nuclear, literally.
That's why you sent her with the Solarians with her guns unloaded.
I do like the idea of like the ultimate terrible leader shepherd of like the commander who, gets in some inappropriate relationships with employees, but then like, don't worry, I'll send him on this mission with a nuclear bomb and it'll take care of that problem for me.
Yeah. I don't need to, what would it be? Like, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Because Sarah ran to the bathroom, or she
Yes,
was just
exactly.
so horrified by your choice, Joe. It's a little unclear. Nick Fontaine is wondering, did any of you manage to save Captain Kirahi and his crew on Vermeer? It might not be obvious that you can, since the only hint is a throwaway line of dialogue as you start the assault on the base. Strange it's not surfaced for the player more, but I always kind of liked it that it was something you had to pay attention for. I don't know what that line of dialogue is. Joe, do you know?
I mean, I think that, let's see. I guess I don't remember any explicit direction you're given about that one way or the other, but I just know that like you get a quest that's like help Captain Kirahi. It's in your codex to like look for ways to help the Solarian team. So then you look at the map and then you see different locations that you can do that are sort of, set out like breadcrumbs on the way to the ultimate base that you're going to. So, but yeah, the only thing that determines whether or not he lives or dies is that there's some like Geth flyer drones. And if you don't take those out, and they're not like directly in your path, you do have to do a little detour. But if you don't take out those flyer drones, Kirrahe dies.
This is the problem with Mass Effect, where it's so fun to have all these branching paths, but when you become too analytical about it and you realize, like, Mass Effect 2, without spoilers, is always a big one for me. Like, wait, this happened in Mass Effect 2 because I did this on a quest? And like, it's just, when you start to have the direct lines of like, okay, because I didn't take 3 pistol shots at this flying drone, then I killed Captain Kirrahe. But I guess
the best character.
That's right. It's very upsetting.
Way to hold the line, chump.
Killslayer in the chat says, when you talk to Kirrahe before starting the assault, I think he brings up the defenses you can expect, which are the things that help him live. I guess.
Which becomes a side mission.
Yeah.
Right? Is taking out the flying drones? Yeah.
There we go. I went back and watched, Joe, those some of the videos that we made back on the Mass Effect 3 cover story trip at Game Informer about like designing the alien races. Because I remember really liking those. They had like some weird little anecdotes and details in there, and one that
some of the Asari. Did we do a Turian one of those?
We did Turian / Garrus. We did Asari. We did Krogan, Batarian, and Solarian. Yeah, because I remember this. What's that?
What did you do?
Oh, like when we visited BioWare for the Mass Effect 3 cover story trip for Game Informer, we just had interviews with the lead artist talking about just the history of designing the species. And there are a couple things that I loved going back to, the one about the Solarians that I forgot about, which was in the universe of Mass Effect, Solarians are the gray aliens. So like all the Roswell shit on Earth, those were actually Solarians visiting us the entire time. So it's like, that's their weird version of like, they kind of got the big eyes. We kind of got some of the sketches right from people that were abducted by UFOs, but just a little bit off. And then the other part that I really love is that all Solarians have like, what's it called? Convex chess? Concave?
Are we doing concave? Yeah.
Yes. So they have like that weird sunken in concave chess. And the artist's reasoning for that, or the weird bit of lore, is that they weren't self-conscious about it until they met all the other species, and they're like, wait, everyone has like normal chests except for us. We're all like shrunken in. And so that's why all the Solarian armor has like arcs going around. They all like, they try and compensate for this weird chest caving in on all of their armor. And now every time I see a Solarian, I'm just obsessed with that little factoid about trying to make up for it.
The idea that they would say everyone else has normal chests.
Damn it, I knew we got screwed. I've just felt it for millions of years, and now here's evidence.
Oh my God.
Ben, remind me, in any of those, like in the Turian video, do you get to see, like, they showed us concept art of Turians without their armor, right?
You literally get to see their cricket dicks. Yeah. Like they totally have like a naked.
Do we have to say it every? Were you trying to get it in every episode?
That's
Is that
the goal.
What that is?
Yeah. No, you do get to see them naked. They obviously don't have genitals, but you see a stripped down Turian. Yeah.
Don't they have some weird like collarbone thing that explains the circular thing around their necks all the time?
I guess so. Yeah.
I go like this, like they've got some hoop that they're just.
I'm trying to find my friend sent me this, who was playing it through it with me, like sent me everyone without their clothes on, and it's in the other, but I don't think I can open it in Discord at the same time. But yes, all the aliens have ridges or things that account for the way that their armor fits them, is my memory. Like, oh yeah, all right, I guess that's why that's shaped that way.
Yeah,
because Krogans also have some big like hump on their back too, which is
right.
Keep the resources in. Also, please excuse my Solarian bladder.
Glug, 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 glug. Will Dane writes in and says, the radio chatter during the Vermeer assault paints such a rich narrative tapestry. I was really on the edge of my seat, hoping that Captain Kirrahe, Kaidan, or Ashley, or the other STG operatives could hold on long enough to escape. Quote, hold the line, says Will Dane. Yeah, I love that. I think it adds so much to hear like Ashley screaming about what's going on in the rest of the battle.
I like, there was what Kira even did some interesting. He said something about like, oh, give them a little bit of ground. We're trying to draw them out. And I was like, you sound like you're good at your job. He was like, oh, that's clever.
Yeah, I'm glad we sent one of our buddies with you.
That was good. Yeah, tactical.
Yeah, and it really gives a sense of like a parallel story happening there. That even though, where another game might quick switch control to Ashley for a little while in that mission or something. Like, I'm really glad they didn't do that. I like the idea that they're painting this story that's happening over there, but also sort of give you that sense of helplessness by not giving you any sort of insider control into it, other than just these like audio tidbits.
Yeah,
For sure. You have let go of your person, and they are living a whole different life that you can't help with. Yeah.
Nick L. Great question here. Nick L says, all right, Deepest Divers, let's talk about your choice for that big decision on Vermeer. That's right. I want to know if you let Rana Thanoptis live or die. She gave us some very interesting information about indoctrination, but did you shoot her or let her escape?
Let her go.
She got shot.
Yeah. Oh, I'm totally with you, Joe. Even though I'm playing Paragon, it's like she tried to pull this like, oh, look, I was just following orders. I don't know. It's all fine now. Here's all the info. And so I chose the Paragon option or the Renegade option. Then Shepard's like, yeah, sorry doesn't help your victims. Blam, blam, blam. Just unloads. And I'm like, yeah, that's about right. Like, no mercy for the
concept of a Paragon playthrough continues to baffle me.
I'm really nice to people on a small scale, but just every once in a while, I just have an itchy trigger finger.
I think we have
you shoot
exactly
assholes.
complementary playthroughs. That's fascinating.
Yeah, but
I let her go.
You can't
She
let her
helped us
live.
out.
But she did so much damage. She's been creating an army of slaves, and she's like, but I did one good thing. It's like, nah, screw you. You're out of it.
And also, she's been in close proximity to Sovereign, so it's like
That's
everyone is
Stronger. Yeah.
Well, that's what I want. Like, that's a good question for a lot of things in this game, but I very much read the indoctrination thing, which, by the way, I forgot, like, how on Front Street they are talking about indoctrination this much in this game. But I very much read it as if, like, if the person I'm talking to has a normal voice, like comes across as normal, I'm going to assume they haven't been indoctrinated. And so when you're making the choice about who's being let out of prisons and stuff, there's one guy who's like, these freaking voices in my head, but they're quiet. I'm keeping them down. I was like, all right, you seem fine, and let him out. Then immediately he attacks you. But the others,
was
you let him out?
indoctrinated. Matriarch Benezia was indoctrinated.
no, I guess that's a good point. I didn't think about the game. I should have thought about what happened previously in the game more. I guess that's true. Yeah, Benezia didn't sound too weird and messed up. So did you not let anybody out of their little jails then, Joe, because you didn't trust them?
Oh, absolutely not. No one got let out, and I killed the ones that I could.
Jesus Christ. Would you do that on Paragon?
Yeah, I don't remember. I think I probably, in those cases, I would not have actively killed anyone, but I probably would still just not engage with the scientists who are claim to not be indoctrinated.
Because everything you learn about people who are indoctrinated is that they're completely gone.
Yeah.
But they don't start that way. These are late stage. I think your perception of the Solarians in that section are that they're too late. They're too far gone.
And they don't give you any sense of like a road home from indoctrination, right? There's no like, okay, this person has been indoctrinated, but they've been out of Sovereign's contact for, a month and they're getting back to normal. The idea is that it's just like irrevocably changing you.
I thought there was some line about being away from Sovereign. Maybe it's just after you free somebody or something. Shepard mentions that distance or something, but I do love the very Han Solo move of towards the end of Vermeer when you see Saren and Shepard immediately is just like, the dinner scene in Empire where Shepard just immediately is unloading on Saren. Even after like talking to Garrus, and Garrus is like, we need to kill Saren. And Shepard's like, no, we're going to bring him to the council. Then the second she sees him, I was like, oh Christ, he's right there. Just starts firing. It's perfect.
I think his thing about we're going to bring him to the council is before you necessarily know the extent of like the Reapers and the Beacon and like what he's really. It's one thing when it's like we need to bring Saren to justice for what he did not Eden Prime, and it's another thing when it's he is actively conspiring with the creatures who will wipe out the galaxy.
Right. Leo, what did you think about this whole section with Saren?
On Vermeer?
Vermeer, yeah. Just his kind of explanation of where he's at.
I thought that was a good twist, and it kind of justified him being gone for so long. It wasn't like he was present the whole time, reminding you how evil he is, and then surprise, he actually had the best interests of the galaxy at heart. It was a nice, like, okay, this character makes sense to me now, and I appreciate that. Like, I don't know what to do about the Reapers. joining him, if that would help us survive, I guess I see where he's coming from.
Yeah, and I love his explanation too of just like, look, the council wouldn't understand this. And then Shepard just keeps volleying all these ideas. And he has a great line where he goes, do you think I haven't thought of this? Like, just the idea of like, I've really thought this through, Shepard. It is really the only thing we can do. And I am in love with Saren in this section. I love it so much. Just as like, hey, I know it's big and weird, but I'm a really smart guy. And I think this is our best play. And I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And now check out these sick moves on his little hover car, which Sovereign probably threw in as part of the deal if he just went along with them. So who can resist that sweet thing?
If you help me kill the galaxy, I will give you a hoverboard. I'm here. Yes.
I was promised hoverboards in the future, and I shall have one, by God.
I love he even does like I think it's on Alos, but he does like the Back to the Future 2 move too, where he jumps off the thing and then slowly rises up on the hoverboard. Look at this. Yeah. A lot of sweet moves.
I like the fact that Leo likes Saren in this part, because this is something for me that I like, even going into, all right, I'm going to get a little nerdy here, guys. But even going into Mass Effect for the very first time back in 2007, it still wasn't totally fresh for me because I had read Mass Effect Revelation, the novel.
Hell yeah.
about Mass Effect. What's that?
Before playing 1?
Yeah. They put out a novel prior to the release of the original Mass Effect that was about, they talk about it a little in the game, the mission that Captain Anderson and Saren go on when Anderson was in contention to be a Spectre. That's what that book is about.
And you read it before you were even sold on the universe through the game?
True, yes. Like when they say this is a Krogan and this is a Solarian, I had totally different ideas of what those aliens were supposed to look like.
So cool.
By the way, your tone, Sarah, when you asked that, it's like you might as well have just been petting Joe on the head. Like,
I'm sorry,
so cute.
I think that is very sweet. I think it's cool.
Oh, bless your heart.
Yeah, I'm trying to Southern bless your heart. I think that's wonderful, and that you were surprised by how they look. That's amazing.
Yeah, but all that's to say is that like, Saren, even though in the book he's not indoctrinated at that point, is like you still get a sense of like he's a bad guy, but and he's ruthless, but he's also like effective and So I went into the game already with sort of an idea of who Saren was as a villain. So I was really curious now that this story of Mass Effect is done, how to a new player without that background, like how you feel like he's built as a threat.
Yeah. I maybe this is the minority or silly opinion here, but I choose to read it as I think it's more interesting if he isn't indoctrinated until the ending. Like Vermeer, he's just calling it best he can, and then on Elos when he gets like the Saren 2.0 upgrade where Sovereign's like, let me plug some more metal into you, that's when it's game over for him. But Leo, did you have thoughts on that? Did you fully read him as clearly indoctrinated? He's an idiot on Vermeer.
It could go either way, but I also hope he wasn't, because it makes sense from what we know of indoctrination, of it gradually wearing away at who you are, that like if this person would go along with you without you having to indoctrinate them, it makes more sense to have them at their full capacity than, destroy what you'll have to of their brain to get them to follow you blindly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You definitely speak to a part of him that has doubts and is still semi-self-aware.
Exactly.
His Sovereign feels the need to enhance his hold on him. So yeah, I think he's protesting too much a little bit. I think he is fronting a touch on his own sense of control of the situation, but then he's lost it by the time you see him.
Well, he's probably so scared.
And humbled is so.
Yeah. But it's like if he's so smart, I mean, he should be aware of like how much self-doubt he should have in this situation. If he really was 100% clean, just playing it as he saw it, he should still be terrified about that idea of, am I really myself at this point? But you're right. It's that level of self-doubt that I think makes him so interesting and has me believing in him.
I don't think there's any question that he's indoctrinated before the beginning of the game, even like years before. For the groundwork that he's laid. I guess partially, when based on the way they describe indoctrination, it's not like a switch, right? It's not like you're normal and then suddenly you're babbling in a cage somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's like, I think of it maybe a little bit like the way they describe ideas in the movie Inception, right? It's like you plant a seed somewhere deep in their mind, and it just sort of like grows and changes until it's like, it's not really distinguishable as a foreign thought anymore. You know, it's just a seed you've planted that sort of grows with the thoughts that the person would have had anyway and influences them that way.
But then how do you...
The power of their own rationalization shapes around that seed.
Exactly.
And that motive, yeah.
That's interesting. But then how do you explain like the Solarians that are like, oh, the voices in my head must kill Shepherd? Are they just so stupid that it just overwhelms them?
Well, Shepherd talks, or Saren talks a little bit about like indoctrination as sort of being, I mean, he doesn't use this word, but he talks like, frames it a little bit like a spectrum, right? Like the idea that the more of yourself that you are, the more useful you are if you're an individual like Saren, right? Like the more free will that Sovereign lets Saren have, the more effective he is as a Spectre, as his ability, you know, with his ability to move freely with his authority and gather allies and things like that. But for someone like a dumb Solarian scientist, you don't need that. You don't need that scientist to have any free will. You can slide the indoctrination slider all the way up and just be like, I am basically controlling. You're basically a puppet to me.
Right.
And they're just these sort of meat bodies that do what Sovereign needs to do in different places.
The famously stupid scientists of the world. Yeah, I hear you.
So that
pointless.
would people wonder, because it is sort of framed like a passive effect, but then that makes you wonder or presume that Sovereign actually has much more active control over the degree to which you're being indoctrinated.
Yeah.
Ass effect.
Presence.
Oh. Craig Belmont writes in and says, entering Vermeer, the conclusion feels like it'll happen here. We have a difficult choice with Rex. We're storming Saren's base. We have a suicide mission speech. Our party splits up. We have a standoff with Saren. It is revealed we have Elos and the climax remaining after Vermeer. Anytime an ending to a game feels like it's approaching and more game is revealed, my best friend and I named this feeling getting Vermeered. So
Nice.
that's perfect. It's like your Solarian crew, Joe.
Hold the line, buddies.
We held the line. He's so good.
Shimmy Neutron writes in and says, when you get back to the Citadel after Vermeer and they tell you they aren't going to do anything about Saren on Elos, I don't think I've ever been madder at video game NPCs in my life. I almost woke the house up screaming at my TV. Also, fun fact, in the credits it says that CD Projekt Red did the Polish localization for Mass Effect 1. That is a fun little fact.
I hung up on that council every time, and boy, it felt so good to let them die at the end. It was like, these guys are borderline treasonous with how
competent.
against the cause they have been.
Wow.
We can find a better council, you know?
I'm still full team council. Like, you know, I think it's here where they're like, look, we can't invade the Terminus system because you had a dream, Shepherd. We need some evidence. Give us anything. Maybe
after you've been right about 8 things, they can start to get on board.
I was confused when they said something about, I like their angle of saying, oh, Saren's just playing you. Like, Saren saw reports of your vision, so now he's like leading you to believe that the Reapers are real and all this stuff is happening. It just made me think, like, wait.
Gaslighting.
Yeah, Saren still has access to the reports? Like, he still has... where is he getting this? At what point is he reading about this?
Maybe, like, it leaked, or, like, Kalisa been seen in El Jelani or something. Like,
maybe?
Or something.
Or maybe, I guess there was kind of that little window before they stripped him of being a Spectre, which they did, right? In the beginning? I think they did.
What I think is interesting and dubious about that is, like, bring in Liara. You literally have my Asari can talk to your Asari, can show you what's going on. Come on now.
Oh, honestly, yeah. Let Liara like do the brain thingy with the other Asari.
Let's just embrace the eternity and get this sorted.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
This whole sequence where then Anderson comes back, his sadly weird face pops up full screen again. We're just like, oh God, so greasy, Mr. Anderson, you deserve better. But then you get to choose, where you send him. And for me, God, I think I sent him, I forget where it was exactly, but he was like hacking on a computer, and then some guards came up behind him and just shot him, which is crazy. Yeah. What was he doing for you guys?
You chose the wrong option, man.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Hang on. sent Anderson to go deal with patrols or whatever, and he died.
So he gets shot, and that's like the end of the scene. And then the next time you see him, they're like, "Would you like to nominate Anderson to the council?" It's like, what happened? Like last time you were dealing with Anderson, you were unloading into his back. Like it's crazy.
Max.
Yeah.
Now, the other option is to send him to go hack Ambassador Udina's computer.
That's right.
Which is awesome because he goes to do it, and Udina comes in and catches him, and Anderson just decks him.
Captain Anderson, you're doing it.
It's the most comeuppance Udina can really get in this game, I think.
Okay.
And if you leave it, I left it up to him. I was like, I don't know, man. You assess the situation. You're doing it, and he chose that. He was like, yeah, I want to go punch that guy.
Oh, okay, perfect. It's all fine in the end, I think. So there's a little tease where you and your romantic partner have like start to go for a kiss, and then Joker jumps in and interrupts them. But then it's as you're going to Elos, it's game on, sex box 101 that we got going on here. Leo, did you have a romantic experience?
That was me and Caden, who had just bonded over Ashley's death. And from what we had discussed here about the relationships feeling like they came to fruition too fast, that one felt very natural. I was glad I put it off, because it was like, oh, we did have all that time to get close. It does feel earned at this point.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I feel like with BioWare games, I always panic about how insistent I have to be either rejecting somebody or to expressing interest in them in order to get that, to lock in the path. So how did you hold him at arm's length for a bit, and then after only after Vermeer, you're like, oh, okay, maybe you're hot. Like what was your pacing there?
We probably talked the most on the ship, but not really flirting.
Wow.
He was just the easiest to access, the closest to the command center. So I ended up talking to him a couple times more. But yeah, then suddenly flirting started happening after the Ashley thing. But I never brought mission ever. He's my stay-at-home hubby.
Isn't it?
You stay home. I love that. I wish I had the confidence, and I was just too anxious to do that, because I would have preferred that if we're just keeping it above board. And then this event happened. I'm so glad that that's true. I just wish I had not been so paranoid, because that sounds nicer.
There is something weird, and you mentioned having that connection after the big hot sex scene, Leo. But I don't know if this is all just nonsense in my brain, but I do feel different about my character in battle after this sequence. Liara is my romance interest, and seeing her in battle after this, I do feel like an extra weird connection to her, because hey, we just had that whole sex scene together, and now I get to see you run around in a combat arena. This is fun.
Or you're just whispering
powers.
Babe, that's hot. Babe, that's hot.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a babe that's hot scenario. Yeah.
I'm oh God, I must have said grooming. That's not what I want. That's not what I mean. I am shaping Garrus as my mentee. And I brought him on a lot of missions, and he was especially helpful for the end there. And I was reinforcing our work relationship for future payoff, but
smart.
Choice of words. Anyway, yes.
So you're fully dedicated. So no fooling around with anybody else. You're Garrus or bust. Yeah.
Me? Oh, well, you mean for the overall, the whole
I guess
story?
in this one, you just were I know, but you weren't. I mean, technically, you could have slept with somebody else and then pivoted to Garrus for the future entries.
Well, I did. I slept with Caden and then.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed the Caden part. Okay. Gotcha.
I mean, make no mistake, I boned Caden.
Okay. All right. We get it. Caden's magical.
Also, sorry. That shot, God, did anyone enjoy their sex scene? That's what I'd like to know.
No.
Yes. I'm glad. I'm glad for you.
I didn't get one this playthrough, but yeah, it is. Video game sex scenes are about the least sexy thing I can think of.
Yes.
I was literally like this. I checked my body. I was like, what am I doing? I'm trying to get away. It was
it's so funny.
And the voiceover was so nice. It's all nice. It's just.
And then the music kicks in. But it's so funny with Liara, because I feel like most of the conversations with Liara are her explaining connections with Asari are completely different. It's not like your physical sex like you humans are and then with this scene it's just here are my boobies, let's just have sex. It's just the most all right, here's some old missionary. It's just the weirdest 180.
She's what makes you feel good makes me feel good. We can do this if you need it.
Right. But I forgot how much there is where it's oh, you see Liara's boobs like without nipples or anything. And you see Liara butt in like that little flash. It's like, this is a little more graphic than I remembered.
You can see why it caused such an uproar.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. I submitted a news tip to Fox News and said, you got to come back and revisit this.
No, I could be wrong too, though, but I almost feel like one of the things that people were mad about wasn't even this sex scene. It was the consort sex scene on the
really?
On the Citadel, which you see basically nothing, you know?
Yeah.
I think I had sex with her this time, and I forgot that you could.
Yeah.
It's probably something you can ask for your reward or something, huh?
Yep. I didn't romance anyone, but that's not to say that Shepard can't get it, you know?
Yeah, I understand.
He just pays for it.
Exactly.
That's right. That's what you mean.
Or gets it as a reward from grateful.
Well, transactional.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Shepard can get transactional sex.
anytime he wants.
Does everybody that you romance have like the very dopey line at the end, like Liara? She goes, "Oh, by the goddess, that was incredible, Shepard." Is Caden also like va va voom? Does everybody get that?
Oh, what does he say?
Oh, wooga.
I don't remember. I probably wasn't even looking.
Yeah, that's the correct response.
It was just a quick Mamma Mia. It wasn't anything special.
Mamma mia!
Very understated.
Romantic even. John Ford writes in, thank you for supporting us on Patreon, John Ford, and says, this game is pretty unclear about when content is about to get gated off from you. When I got to the last section, I had several outstanding side missions that had a last step of go to the Citadel to report back that were not completable because you can only go to the Citadel one time after Vermeer. So any missions you pick up that one time will never be finished. Same for Nevaria.
That's how I missed out on the DLC this time, but I didn't miss out on it the first time, so I suppose that tracks.
Yeah. I get that that's frustrating. Leo, did you visit the Citadel a couple times, do any of that bonus stuff?
Not very much. No. Yeah. I came back to resolve the preaching Hanar, and that was about it.
Okay. Gotcha. Zexerium says, I guess we should talk about Elos in general. I guess just being on this planet. Yeah.
Every game should have one of those
yes.
Text boxes that says, if you go from here, all of your side quests will be these side quests will not be completable.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't care how gamey it is, and I don't care how much it takes you out of the experience. Players need that.
Or just make a save for me.
Yeah.
At the last possible moment, you know?
Yeah. The ultimate sin, even worse than that, Joe, of not telling you, I want to say it's Ni no Kuni 2. Maybe other games do this, but it gives you the heads up. This is it. Are you ready for the final battle? Here we go. We're going into this cave. Are you ready? And then it's not really the ending. They keep it going beyond that, which is so frustrating because I'm in game on item mode. And then to be like, oh, psych, we're still going. It's diabolical. I get vermired. I'm pretty sure.
I think it gives you a warning that you're not going to be able to return for a while, but I don't think it explicitly says this is the end of the game.
Joe, do you remember the end of Ni no Kuni 2 well enough where you can correct my random assumption that it's Ni no Kuni 2 that I'm thinking of?
Is this a Ni no Kuni deep dive?
We'll save Ni no Kuni 2 deep dive because that game is worthy of conversation. Sarah.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful, eh?
It is beautiful, but do you know who one of the main characters is in Ni no Kuni 2? The first character you meet?
Is there?
It's the President of the United States. It is the most amazing opening where it's the President of the United States and they're in their presidential limousine. They see a nuke go off in Washington, D.C., and next thing they know, they wake up in Ni no Kuni world with just a gun. It's the craziest opening ever.
Wow, that sounds fun.
It's very good.
And the game is really a whimsical, anime-inspired city builder RPG.
Right. I didn't realize it was also a movie starring Gerard Butler.
Yes, exactly, yeah. Anyways, Elos though, everybody.
I thought I was going to get penalized. I had the opposite. I thought I was going to get penalized for doing one last side quest before Elos. I was going to show up and it was you idiot. We said that it happened to happen now.
Yeah.
You just had this conversation with the council. Why are you wiping up biotics? It's thought I was going to be penalized for that.
Major Kyle had to get taken down. What can I say?
Yeah. But Elos is cool. I like the kind of big space jockey statues everywhere, very alien, and then everything kind of overgrown. It's got a cool look to it.
That It was one of my least favorite areas in terms of navigation. I feel like
really?
the map was sort of hard. Like I got turned around a couple times there.
Yeah.
And not quite. And this is partially the completionist in me, who's like, I want to make sure that I fight all the enemies I can and get all the XP that I can and get all the treasure that I can. But then I was like confused as to where I should actually be going sometimes. But
Yeah, I get that. There's definitely situations of like, what am I doing here exactly? Okay, I'm going around and disabling it so the Geth armatures then won't pop up in fights. Okay, I see what you're going for, design, but it's just a little blurry.
There was one part on this planet that drove me wild. We had a discussion on a previous episode about how that white flag you were chasing, and it turns out it was you place your own waypoint.
Right.
This level only places one for you, and you go on the map and get rid of it, and you pop out and it's back.
Really?
The little waypoint flag. It's the only time I saw it happen the whole game. It's so weird.
They decided to make use of the feature on their like. Oh, we should do that like in the last second.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh crap! Great, more often.
it's true. And you know what I think it is? It happens in that Geth, in that security room where you can like activate the Geth armatures.
Yeah.
And I think the reason they did it, because I got turned around in that room, is that it's really easy.
Huh.
It's like a very symmetrical room. It's very easy for you to forget which entrance you came from and which one you're going into, because you come in and then there's some like cutscenes and stuff like that and a big fight. So I think that they do that for you there just to be like, you came in the other way, this is where you're going.
Gotcha.
It's helpful for sure.
Yeah.
I definitely very anticlimactically had somehow turned around the Mako so that like I started doing that long drive down that tunnel the wrong way. And I was like, oh wait, no.
I did the exact same thing.
The momentum is gone.
Everyone's shaking their head, disappointed.
The banter's run out. It's a problem. It's bad. Yeah.
I had a hilarious Mako moment, and like the timing just synced up in this perfectly for me. So you're going down this big tunnel, you're driving. It's not the final stretch, but you're going through where the the Prothean like stasis tubes are or whatever. And when you reach a certain point, it puts a force field in front of you and behind you, because it forces you to go off to the side to go talk to Vigil.
Yeah.
Right. So when you go in there and the force fields come up, I had Rex and Caden in my party. And Rex is like, it's an ambush. Saren set a trap. As soon as those fields come up. And then Caden says, I don't think Saren had anything to do with this. But what happened to me is just as that conversation was happening, I was barreling forward on the Mako and I just rammed face first into the force field. And then flipped upside down.
Yeah.
So just as Caden was saying, like, I don't think Saren had anything to do with this. It's like Commander Shepard is bumbling, trying to like steer the Mako. It's like, yeah, it's Shepard's fault. This isn't Saren. This isn't a trap. We just got an idiot behind the wheel.
I had the exact same thing. There were so many times when I thought to myself, I'm so glad I'm not streaming this. That was one of them. One is all the time I spent checking stats and trying to remember, again, a simple UI fix. Just let me see my stats for my whole team, not just myself and my squad when I'm in shops. So just so many, but definitely flipping the Mako and wasting time driving backwards. And oh yeah, it was good that this was a private experience.
I don't think I bought anything this entire game.
Same.
Every time I would go into the store, even by the end, I'd be like, this stuff's way too expensive. Or I have stuff better than it. Like,
I bought a couple things very early on that was like metagel capacity upgrades, and that was it.
Okay.
Capacity and license. I got a whole bunch of really sweet. I'm glad I went to the Citadel when I did the last time, because the Alliance requisitions opened up a really top line. What is it? HMS XFX, whatever for all the guns.
After Vermeer is when it opens up the level 10 Spectre weapons,
right, gear,
which are just like leaks. So if you want to buy all of them, it costs you like a third of the max money. Like it costs like, I forget what the max is. Is it 9? It's like 10 million is the max, and it's like 3 million to buy a full set of that. Of that gear.
I was hanging out at the max amount of money for a very long time, and then I bought that series, and it took me down by half or whatever it was. Yeah.
Jesus.
I can't imagine like you maxing out. Completing everything. You would just be hanging out at max. I wasn't even trying.
Yeah.
Just hang out with max cash all the time.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. Zexirium writes in and says, so I have a very important question. How does an ancient Prothean ruin on Elos have the exact same elevator control as the Citadel and other colonies? The rest is made out of an ancient sculpture and stones. What the hell is going on? I think it actually
based their technology off of Reaper tech, which is the Citadel, et cetera, et cetera.
I really honestly think that's the explanation if you really want to think about it. It's that everybody's using the elevator design from the Citadel, and that's spread through the galaxy exactly on the path that the Reapers wanted them to.
You ride in elevators because we allow it. You use these buttons because we demand it.
You open these crates.
We think that's a really fun game. We think you'll like it.
And you can't improve on it.
The Tune writes in.
I love the idea that Reaper video games are just they're just Frogger, Simon Says. It's like, we are the most advanced species in the galaxy. It's like, what? Man, this is what you got? This is Frogger? Come on.
The Tune writes in, submits a comment on Patreon, and they say, whenever Mass Effect 1 gets brought up, haunted whispers of clunky Makos and slow elevators are never far behind. But when push comes to shove on Elos, it's the trusty, floaty Mako that gets you to the conduit and across the galaxy to save the galaxy. No Mako equals Reaper victory. I agree. Okay. Reaper saves the day.
Fact.
So, Leo, you have to take back everything bad you've ever said. No, go ahead, sorry.
Could have made it control better still.
No?
That final spit out into the Citadel from the mini relay is a pretty fun move. I will say that.
I completely forgot about that. That's such a cool idea. Like, you can put a car through one of those? Like, could I just jump through one of those? Like, what does it actually take for a mass relay?
Yeah. And I know people don't love like timed sequences in games, but I do love that like ticking clock just as you're leaving Ilos, right? The idea like you have 20 seconds or 40 seconds to get to this mass relay.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's hard to get there unless you're me and you're like obsessed with getting as much XP as possible.
Exactly
so
I was going to ask.
kill that armature with my cannon.
Oh, that's sad.
You can't kill everything, Jack. You can't.
But the first time I did it when I did not have that kind of obsession, it's just awesome to like, you just go cruising down there and these, you know, those Geth Colossi or whatever that are always a pain in the butt are there and you're just like swerving by them. It's like, you feel that sense of urgency there. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Danny Driscoll says the ending has some serious Halo 1 ending with the Mako escape, just with the Warthog, but that's a callback to a different Deepest Dive. Let's see. Justin McKinney submits a comment on Patreon saying the shot of Sovereign plowing through Turian ships as it makes its way towards the Citadel has always stuck in my memory. I think it is extremely effective in showing the overwhelming power of the Reapers compared to the other races. I love this entire sequence. Leo, are you a sucker for a good ship battle?
No.
Okay, not a sucker. You didn't think it was cool? Like that shot of like, Mornay wrote in talking about how sweet it is as well. Like the wide shot of Sovereign coming into the Citadel and like it's coming in on the point of the Citadel and like the camera rotates with it as it's coming down. It's so cool looking.
Yeah, that was all right.
It was all right, ladies and gentlemen. We got it. Yeah, that was all right. That's the best we're going to do with Leo and Mass Effect 1.
Wait, did everyone, who saved the council? Who killed the council? Like, Destiny?
I saved my boys.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. Split half and half. Perfect.
Yeah. And that, let's see. There's some people. Rich Carrasco says, making the choice between saving the council and letting them die was, I think, the most significant choice the game had you make. It truly made you feel like a commander on a battlefield by having to make an instant decision that could spell life or death for others in the heat of a battle. Needless to say, I let those judgy bastards burn in hell while I saved everyone else. No fireworks for Joseph, Rich says.
What happens if you let them survive? But you still get that choice of who will lead them?
Yeah.
It's the same people. You save. Yes, you do. You get the choice of which human
Anderson
is
and the other
represented
guy?
on the council.
So what happens if you kill him? Is it just an empty podium? And
That's a great
it
question.
sucks. So it's like you think. Well, Leo, what was your experience when you let them die? What happens?
What happened?
I barely caught anything. I'm curious for you to explain what the difference really is, because it just seemed like, I chose Captain Anderson to start the new council or whatever.
You start. So there's no council, and then you choose Anderson, and he's like, "Great, I'll make a council, I guess."
What sucks? No, I mean, at least in my ending, and I think this is just what happens if you let the council die, is the fact that, like, I let the council die with the idea of like we'll get a new council. These guys can go. And what happens as a result of that is Udina is like, we'll start a new council made only of humans.
Freaking
And it's
idiot.
like, which human is going to lead it? Is it me or Anderson? And I'm just like, I don't care. I don't get into politics. Whoever, but like, you don't get a say in saying like, oh, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't have an all-human council, but we should let the other races be represented. That isn't an option there. It's either like you let the council live, or you're space racist who thinks humans should rule everybody.
I forgot about that. You do get to say, hey, this wasn't a power play to get humans represented here. Like, this feels wrong. And then both the people you're with are like, they're gonna love humans being in charge. The cool stuff we just did.
Oh,
Anderson, even Anderson's like, yeah, I can't argue with him. He makes a good point.
really? That's such a bummer.
Didn't buy it.
What a weird idea. Just they're like, well, trillions of life forms are going to be like, way to go, humans. People who were just on the council like 14 minutes ago. If I were another species, I would assume that the humans were working with the Reapers to like coordinate this just for the ultimate power grab.
Yeah, I did not see a way around but that's a perfectly logical thing. You're like, let's just wipe this round and then get a new cast of characters in there.
Right.
But that didn't occur to me. But I was like, maybe if what we need is like galaxy-wide unity, I'm not going to trash the existing coalition government that's already there. So
Yes.
I saved them.
I'm with you.
And then we had our difference. And they were so appreciative, can I just say?
Big hugs all around for Shepard. They said, my God, we've screwed you over this entire time. What can we do? Let us kiss your cheeks, Shepard. No,
You can hang up on us all you want.
Yeah.
I'm sure in future Mass Effect games, they will not prove to be an obstacle or anything.
Nope.
Yeah.
For sure.
Brian with a Y submits a comment over on Patreon, says, there's one moment towards the end that I still find mind-blowing. On the Citadel, when you're headed to the tower and the elevator shuts down, Shepard says, we're going outside. The camera shifts a certain way to give a long hallway-like effect. Then you're running up the side of the elevator. It's something that could have been disorienting, but it's so well done here.
It's really fun, that little section.
Yeah.
That was cool.
And like, there's a part of me that wishes, like, oh, I wish I was fighting through more of this Citadel areas that I knew. Like, I wish I was fighting in like the market or like the bar or something, but just to have that sense of scale, I think it's worth it. Like Elena P here wrote in about just to have that giant sovereign getting bigger and bigger, you kind of need to be on the outside. And you still get to go to the Presidium later on and see a little bit of
That's true.
a previous space.
When you land on the Presidium, I forgot that they like debris gated you into the like just 2 square feet to go into the tower. Like I for some reason had manufactured, like that was the picture I had in my head, but I like manufactured that you did run around the wards and like shoot stuff. I was like, oh, I completely made that up.
Yeah.
Weird.
That would have been a cool level, though.
Yeah. It was really fun. Just like Flex on fire and then poor guy being like, you want to play some Quasar? You know, like that would have been so.
It'd be fun to see an Elcor like galloping away from flames, like, oh no, or whatever they look like. I don't know.
Oh no.
I've seen Elcor just move. How do they move?
Oh,
They've never done it. Josh submits a comment on Patreon saying, I'm really happy I kept with the game because this last act really came together for me in a big way. The finale is basically the end of Star Wars: A New Hope, with Joker even getting his own Han Solo / Millennium Falcon moment of badassness. That's true. That is nice. The inspirations were very on display for this finale, and I think it's awesome. Also, I had Liara and Rex during the climb to the council chambers in my party, and after taking down hundreds of Geth and other soldiers and finally getting to the chambers, Liara goes, finally, some action. Was literally everything we did before that not good enough for you, Liara? Lower your standards a bit. I'm getting out of this. I'm trying to get you out of this alive.
My gun was on safety, so sorry. I really haven't been doing anything. Can I complain about something for a second here?
Let's see, Sarah, what do you think? As our counsel here on the Deepest Dive?
Oh, did you have to vote? I'll hear a complaint.
Okay.
I motion to hear the complaint.
So,
do I hear a second? Leo?
No, I second the motion?
Can you second your own motion?
System.
Anyway, let's just do it.
So here's the thing. That previous person brought up Star Wars, and I think that that's a great analogy here because when you see the Rebel fleet in Star Wars going after the Death Star, I think that is a just like perfect parallel to what's going on here. Like the Death Star as a threat versus Sovereign as a threat, right? Just this huge insurmountable power that you're going up against. But I think the big difference and what I'm complaining about in Mass Effect is that in Star Wars, they clearly communicate to you the hope for victory, right? There's this exhaust port that goes straight into the core, and if we shoot it, we will blow up the Death Star.
Yeah.
It gives you this sense of like, this thing that you should not be able to destroy, there's a flaw and you can destroy it.
Right.
And I feel like in Mass Effect, they build up Sovereign and the Reapers in general as just this super imposing, frightening threat that seemingly invincible. But then they don't give you, in my mind anyway, a believable way for like, how is this primitive fleet of spaceships able to destroy this galaxy destroying monster? They don't tell me about a weak spot. It's just like a bunch of spaceships shoot at it a lot and it blows up. And
it helps that you killed Saren, right? When the Sovereign was possessing him, that felt like a clutch moment.
Extremely gooey, unexplained like thing where it's like, oh, maybe he downloaded his essence to Saren, and then that's when you murdered that and you got weak. It was real fudgy.
For sure. Like,
that's
they don't even mention that though, right? Is that anywhere in the descriptions? Okay.
No, I don't think so.
Nope.
But at the same time,
it's just the order of developments.
Yeah.
And Joker's like, now's our chance. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
But doesn't it still kind of deliver that idea and all you need to know about just, it took every ship from every species across the entire galaxy firing on one to take them out. And the idea that there are more when we're kind of in ruins here is too much to bear. So do you I don't know.
If that were what happened, where they were like, where the mid-battle update was, it's working, we just have to keep fighting, then you would get the sense that it was because of the firepower of the fleet. But no, because of the order of events, the only thing that seems to change is that Saren is defeated by you. And you're like, well, I guess he made himself vulnerable by fighting me.
And then Joker shoots him once in the belly.
Right. Yeah.
They don't even have like a super cannon or anything. There's not like, hey, we charged up our particle beam. Let's blast him. It's just, we shot him a lot.
It's a little.
Yeah. I think throughout this entire final section, there's a lot of kind of cheesy, hokey stuff, but it all super works on me. Like even that dopey final shot where it's like Shepard walking towards the camera and like doing that little smirk. I was like, hell yeah. Oh yeah. Look.
That smirk. Hard thumbs down.
I was wondering if it had to do with the character you designed or something, but I'll do an impression of my smirk for the video viewers now.
For the audio listeners, it's a really charming, cool, suave smirk. It's like a George Clooney smirk.
Super cool.
And it was after a moment of like, who thinks the main character has died there?
Right. Yes,
I guess I know every story has to do the main character died fake out, but come on. You just told me it was a trilogy, basically.
I think that's less dopey than like the trading card weird still image at the end where it's just like Shepard over Earth, basically like a billowing flag behind them. It's like that just always feels so weird.
Yeah.
I know it's that to me at least, because like that looked all cool and scary and imposing, right? It's like I killed the count. I had this red background. It was all like, renegade and stuff. Versus like Shepard giving some dumb smirk. He's literally not smiled once in my whole playthrough. It's a renegade playthrough.
Is that right? Yeah.
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 It should be a frown if you're a renegade.
Don't do that. Shepard, hot tip. Don't do that.
Another robot submits a question saying you could toss a quarter blindfolded in the Mass Effect universe and hit a more interesting character than Shepard. So what is it that makes Commander Shepard one of the great characters in games? Are we wrong for thinking
my vote.
that? What is that? Like, why do you think? Oh, just Jennifer Hale?
His performance.
Yeah.
I think it is. I mean, I genuinely enjoyed the way that my conversations developed this time, picking and choosing as I did with someone who was flawed and like tried to do the right thing, but really had a hot button that was like surprising. And that is systemic and that is writing. But I think a lot of just whether that goes down or not comes down to the performance. And I'm willing to bet that that's true for Mark Mear's performance as well. But I was also just thinking a lot about Jen's performance, which I guess also is maybe technically a friendship that I made through Mass Effect.
Ooh.
Technically speaking. But is that like she could have done such a like, and it's casting too. And I also have to shout out Chris Borders because I forgot to mention Chris Borders that first time who cast and did a bunch of voice directing on this. And I nerded out heavy on him when he directed me in Gears. And I don't know how I forgot all of that. Anyway, that Jen could have been doing such a like tough girl voice, or they could have made her like sound really like cool. And instead, her authority is like so. It's really subtle and easy, but very much there. I believe that she orders people around without having to like demonstrate or declaim that or present that to you. I think it's like really, and then she also handles the softer moments equally well. So I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of there's a lot of incredible pieces to this characterization and to how you're able to express yourself or not. And then even with all the frustrations around what we thought we were going to say and what we didn't. But I think the cauldron for it, or like the caulk or something that makes it all work together, is the performance kind of gluing it.
Yeah.
But that's just me. Obviously, it's like why I do what I do. So
yeah. No, I think you're right. Yeah, Joe, I forget where we landed when we're talking about like the greatest characters of the generation and stuff like that. Like, is Shepard a contender in your mind, or is it just,
I think so, but in a different way, I guess. Like, I mean, I agree the performance is great, but I also agree with the person writing in there that like I don't know that Shepard's writing as a cohesive character is necessarily is what makes that amazing, because you can do weird stuff like randomly shoot some scientist and then save the next one, and like it's sort of on you to create that consistency. And I think that is where Shepard really stands out, is like the level of ownership that players have over that character and the agency they have in that world through Shepard, I think is really what makes that character stand out. And so it has less to do with the writing of Shepard individually, and I think a lot more, because like Shepard's really a lens, but it has a lot more to do with the creation of that compelling world and the characters in that world and the way you choose to interact with them. So in a lot of ways, what makes Shepard great is the way the world externally responds to the things you as a player feel invested in,
Yeah.
Yeah, I was so impressed with how whenever, you had 5 choices that weren't, on polar ends of the moral spectrum or whatever, but you would pick one and the person you were talking to would say something that was clearly only a response to that line, like not a generic thing that was meant to work with whatever you're trying to do. And then it would move on from that. Like, I don't know how much I could describe Shepard as a character at this point besides the way that I played them, which I mean in a completely good way. Like, the performance was great and it sold whichever direction I wanted to take them, but I can't describe Shepard without describing my Shepard.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's that alchemy. I think we're all touching on the fact that like so much of what your headcanon develops and shapes around, like if performance is some caulking, then your own conceptualization of who this person is and why they do what they do is the super secret sauce that's like the extra powerful thing that ties everything together.
Yeah. Well, and
a cipher could be so boring, but for some reason Shepard isn't really flat, and I think a lot of that is it's half your imagination and half maybe the performance and the writing and stuff. So
Totally.
Yeah. Well, no, I think that kind of insertion works in a lot of different ways too, beyond just characterization. The stuff we were talking about, like the relationships between Shepard and the other characters, the buildup of Saren as a villain, your distaste for the council or your love of the council in Hansen's case. A lot of this is wrapped up just in like you as a player do so much heavy narrative lifting in filling in the gaps. And I don't necessarily mean that as a criticism. I think it is correct when I say, like, if you say Saren is not really built up very clearly or well as a villain if you just look at the script of the game. But the writing isn't the only way that work is done. Like Saren's dialogue, Saren's actions are not the only way that work is done. That work is also done through like your other interactions with other characters, the way the world talks about this stuff, the codex entries, all of that is also part of it. Characterization and relationship building and all that stuff in the game isn't just the dialogue that you see on the screen. It's all this sort of soup that, because you as a player feel that connection to Shepard, and that, by extension, that connection to the world, you're filling in a lot of those things with just the way you want them to be, and your head helps make them make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meet Tornado submits a comment on Patreon saying, I love how often one of the dialogue options is just, quote, personal question, which just amounts to tell me about yourself. But every time I kind of hope Shepard just asks a really uncomfortable overlay question like, do you think your parents ever really loved you? Yeah, we're all with you, Meet Tornado. We think about it a lot.
I think that's the time that it should just be word for word. Hey, Ben, personal question.
Who's there? Victor Pham submits a comment on Patreon saying, in a previous episode, someone asked if Ashley Williams was a reference to Evil Dead. On Vermeer, she makes a comment about blasting bad guys with her boomstick. So yes, she's definitely a reference to Evil Dead. Thank you for that follow-up. Very smart.
Speaking of Ashley, I did look up what happened at Shanxi, and my point from the prior episode stands.
What was the point again?
My point was that the occupation was really brutal, and so like the Turians like were basically destroying entire city blocks, if so much as like scout teams were trying to go out and get food. So people were starving and people were dying, and there wasn't much. So her grandfather surrendering was just capitulating to this really overwhelming force. It wasn't like he just like was a weenie with a white flag and a gun, I think is. Joe put it.
Joe was out of line. I agree, sir.
Yeah. And by the way, the first contact war was because we went around activating mass relays willy-nilly against like Citadel law. And the Turians
really?
and the Turians saw it as basically police action to be like, stop that. That's illegal. Don't do that.
Look, let's not get mired in who was right and wrong to start the first contact war here.
We'll be here all day.
It wasn't like we just met a Turian and they started fighting us. We explicitly broke the law, which we did not prior have any awareness of, and that's what happened.
And we call it a first contact conflict. There is so much.
Oh, no.
Martin Glowacki submits a comment saying, huge shout out to the end credit song M4 Part 2 by the band Fonts. That song has been a regular on my playlist ever since the original release. It's such a fantastic song. And he says, I won't lie, one of the reasons I was excited to replay this game was to hear the song again in its emotional context of finishing the game. Matthew Roberts also wrote in saying it's the greatest end credit song to a game ever, which this amount of love to this end credit song completely, what's it called, Joe? Blind struck me? What's the word I'm looking for?
Blindsided?
Dumbfounded or blindsided?
Blind-dumbed me really hard, yeah. I heard the song when it started up, I was like, oh, is this going to be cringe bad? It's like, okay, I guess not. And that's about the most I thought about that ending song. I never really stuck with me, I guess.
Oh, no. I hear those first 10 seconds of that, I'm just like, yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's a bop. Mm-hmm. I heard the first 10 seconds and I started laughing again. But it's like, I think because it's of such a specific time. Like that sort of like guitar shred. So it's very of its time. And personally, my only thought, which counts for nothing, is that I would love to hear like a fan mix. I want to hear, to me, and this is me being like not an actual music nerd who like wishes they were, but I'm like, I feel like this would hit harder and like have more punch and weight to it with a different mix. Because I like the pieces. I'm here for the little riff and whatever, but I kind of just want to hear someone make it slam a little harder because it's some pieces. So I don't know if anyone has a fan mix. Yeah, I want to give me the club mix. Someone has the club mix of that song. I'm here for it. I'll listen to that.
All right.
Sarah, I love how your impression of the guitar riff looks like you're playing a ukulele. I should say, I would never put that song on a playlist. I don't love that song as a song. But I do agree it is a fantastic end credit song. I think the only end credit song I like better is Metal Gear Solid 3 Way to Fall by Star Sailor.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Oh, so good.
Oh,
come on. Joshua Willingen writes in saying, it took a while, but the combat really hit its stride at this point in the game. I'm rhythmically pausing to select abilities, and it gives the combat a sort of a rhythm game feel, is what Joshua says. Leo, as a fan of rhythm games and a fan of action, you digging that?
That's a bold way to like it. I respect that.
Did you warm up at all?
I found the wheel it's too time consuming to go into, and it's just a pain that you can't see that your abilities recharged without going into it. That wheel felt oppressive in a way where I didn't ever want to engage with it besides when I needed a shield boost or whatever. And I eventually just fully put all my biotic points, ability points into throw and just got that up to maximum power. And that was my way I had fun. Because then you start getting it back faster so that you don't have to be like switching abilities to be using abilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems good.
I followed Joe's advice, and I had Justin. I was really worried by the end of the last episode that I wouldn't have enough XP left to pursue this path, but I did finally get for endgame. I had the stasis damage all the way out.
Ooh,
so
nice.
Oh man, isn't that awesome?
Mwah.
Oh, it's so good. You just like, it works on bosses too. So it's like
Saren.
you're fighting Saren and you're just like stasis and he's stuck in the wall and you just go right up to him with your assault rifle. Just ba 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 ba. It made my fight against Saren on Vermeer took literally like 10 seconds.
Oh, wow.
It was awesome.
You're just like, shh, stay put.
I guess we didn't really talk about that idea of like, it is pretty effed up, the idea that Saren tries to kill himself and then Sovereign's just like, not so much. I have so much control of your body that even after that point, we're still going to turn you into weird, lanky, jumpy Saren.
It's grim.
So if you have stasis though, why not just like do stasis and like slap some handcuffs on him real quick? You got like 20 seconds.
Right, and put one on the Reaper while you're at it, really.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. Obi-Wan Denobi writes in and says, so when Liara uses singularity with big objects lying around, it can move them in a way where they block your path. Twice now, she's essentially locked me in a room and I have to use singularity and push to free myself. That's very frustrating. I had a lot of problems. Well, not a lot. Maybe once or twice. Like that stupid Geth shield would get in my way. Like I'd kill the Geth and like that stupid thing would still be sitting there. It's like, all right, I guess I'll just shoot this thing for a while till it's gone.
Yeah. Something to what Leo was talking about earlier too. Leo, if and when you start Mass Effect 2, one of the big improvements about that, because I think you're right that power wheel is a real weird, like for a game that's depending on your class, it can be all about using those powers. It's a real weird way to interact with it. Mass Effect 2 starts letting you like quick map 3 powers at once.
Yeah.
So you can do like, I'm going to throw a singularity and then immediately throw a warp and then set barrier up on myself. And you can just do all of those with a button press without having to open. And you also have fewer powers that you have to, that you invest in. So it's not like it's not like you have 8 different abilities and you can only choose 3 of them. It's like you have fewer options. It's a little more focused.
So streamlined. This is now making. I'm. The more I play, the more I'm going to miss Mass Effect multiplayer.
You can always go back. It's still active on Game Pass. It's amazing those servers are still up if you want to go back and play.
What?
You can play Mass Effect 3 multiplayer on Game Pass. Yeah, I assume some people are. I don't know.
It must be hosted from your Xbox, right? It can't be the servers are actually still up.
Right.
I
what?
think they are.
Here.
I mean, Bad Company 2 servers are still up. Like, it's crazy, like, how much of that stuff is still active if it's on Game Pass, but
Blowing my mind.
I think, anyway, prove me wrong, everybody. Chris Carl submits a comment saying, if you're not ramming Geth Colossus / armatures with the Mako and sending them flying like Flappy Birds, you're doing it wrong. Here's your sign.
Video clip from Vermeer. That's just me repeatedly backing into a Colossus as it like collapses, gets up, collapses. It's like one of those little, I don't know, giraffe toys that you.
I know exactly what you're talking about, Joe. I don't know why, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Ronmar the Only has something very specific saying, one of the cooler aspects of the original Mass Effect and carried over to the successors is that your guns contract when stored and expand when utilized, like Fifth Element. However, I don't think I ever noticed before this replay that the icon in the bottom left for the weapon also does the same. Just another element in my mind of how Mass Effect thoroughly placed the player in the world. I finished my run on Insanity. Oh, very cool. Congratulations.
Impressive.
Yeah, I think this game was a lot easier than I remember it. And I would love to figure out what I was doing that first time that made it so impossible. Because I think I just played on normal both times. But like even during like the big action sequences on Vermeer and Elos and everything, I was like, man, this would be a lot more intense if it was harder. On normal, it doesn't really feel too chaotic. But I imagine it's a nightmare on some of those harder modes.
So much of it depends on how much you're doing. The more you do, the easier it is the whole way through.
Yeah.
Because if you like just didn't do any side quests and level anything up, I'm sure that, well, I don't know how much scaling they do, but it seems like it would probably be harder if you skipped a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I know I don't know to what extent they rebalanced the game, but I know certain instances like the fight against Benezia on Noveria, they specifically modified the environment to make it less difficult.
Gotcha.
The pathways around her are wider and there are more points of cover, so you're not always getting, hit from afar.
Yeah, because I remember that one really kicking my ass.
I died once, and it was in a stupid arachnite hive or something. It was really annoying.
Yeah. Evan One Sonic says, hello.
Hello?
Hi.
Great. In the DLC, Bring Down the Sky on Asteroid 57, there's a little house on top of a mountain. When you enter the house, you see a radio on the wall. You can then, to my surprise, turn on the radio and enjoy the music. I think this is such a cool little detail that made me smile. Yeah, it's just like, it's some elevator music that they repurpose, I think, for that section, but it's very cute.
That was some of the side stuff I did this time, was that asteroid. I could not believe that the post-game DLC still had the same buildings. You can take your time putting it out if it means you make another kind of building.
It would break the lore, man. They got to stick with it. Right at the end.
The big addition, when that, like, the big selling point for this when it was released was like, you get to see Batarians now.
Yep.
They
were cool.
They'd been mentioned before, but they weren't in the game up until the release of that DLC.
Right.
And what a thrill it is to look at their beautiful, weird faces. In those, like,
I hadn't. That was part of my backstory, so I wish I had done it, but I goofed it.
Very interesting. You mentioned that. Darkfish Days writes in and says the Asteroid X-57 story felt custom made for the colonist background. Knowing that Batarian slavers killed my shepherd's parents, it was extremely cathartic to kill Balak. I especially enjoyed the pacing. When Balak is cornered, you have the option to first fire a warning shot at the wall, which causes Balak to tease you. Then you can shoot him in the shoulder, then finally kill him. The choices let me roleplay a Paragon Shepherd who is trying to hold back their personal feelings, but the building anger was too much. That's very good.
Alec is voiced by, Sarah, you know his name, the Saren guy.
Yeah, Fred Tatasciore?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
I can never pronounce his last name, but yeah, same guy.
I hope I'm saying it right.
Luke Strain.
Said it to his face.
Luke Strain has a comment about, I think, the most interesting part about the DLC, saying, Bring Down the Sky DLC is one of the most memorable video game segments for me because it legitimately gave me prejudice against Batarians. From the way Shepard says Batarians when they were introduced to learning the history of the Batarians enslaving humans early in the galactic history, that mission helped shape the way I view Batarians for the rest of the trilogy. That's, I think, the most interesting piece about this is Shepard clearly has like this built up animosity. And then, the main bad guy is crappy, but there's like the other Batarians are like, hey, we're just going along with them. Like, cut us some slack. Like, it kind of humanizes Batarians throughout that DLC in a way that goes against the grain for even what Shepard is kind of preparing you for.
Well, so should I go back and play? Question 1, should I go back and to an earlier save and do it? Question 2, do we think it has impact where I should replay from there so that overwrites my final save?
I think you're fine. I mean, it's kind of interesting and it's like an hour long. So if you want just like another little slice of Mass Effect, it's all right. It's not as interesting. Go ahead.
If you want to die more, I died a few times in the minefield.
Yes, the stupid mines definitely got me as well. I was like, I'm staying away from them. What else could I be doing here? But not enough. Joe, did you play that?
There are references to it later, but it's not like there aren't like big events centered around Bring Down the Sky in later games.
Okay.
All right.
And Balak is the main villain, but
yeah, which by the end I just maybe was leaning into Paragon more than I should, but I totally let him go. I was like, whatever, man, just get out of here.
Nope. Sorry, colonists, you get exploded. Or no, scientists. Yeah. Well, look. That's one of those things where he's like, look, you either let me walk away or I'm going to kill those scientists. And it's like,
right.
Look, man, if you want, like, the murder of those scientists isn't on me. You're the one pressing the detonator here and you're a terrorist. So we're bringing you in.
And we don't, Jack Bauer doesn't negotiate with terrorists.
That's right. That's right.
Is that true?
Sometimes he does.
Okay.
A lot of time to fill on that show.
Yeah. Bauer works in mysterious ways.
That's fine.
Sandshrew writes in and says, I've had enough of your snide insinuations. This game is pretty good at having the dialogue wheel being a short summary of what Shepard is going to say, but I never thought that, quote, time to shut you up meant that I'd be throwing a haymaker into the side of the reporter. Did BioWare get caught in some gotcha journalism? What is with this? Where does it come from?
The resentment against bad journalism?
I think that's basically it, yeah. And I like even how what's his name? Hackett, that he's like bringing up your interview later, like, for me, they're like, the council didn't like what you were saying about Saren and the fact that council is protecting Saren, so, cool it. But Joe, I imagine you beat the hell out of that reporter.
Yeah, I punched her. I captured a clip of it because I liked it so much. And
such a weird punch.
What I had forgotten about it is like, I remember you punched the reporter, but like you just like, she stands up eventually, but like the animation of it is so funny because you just drop her. Like it's like a boxer going down for the count. She just goes,
oh no.
Well, it's like specifically in terms of beats, like shot of you approaching her, you square up, you throw the wildest hook. It's not even like it's just so, and then she falls down, cut back to the shot of you calmly walking back the 2 paces you took, refacing her. And then she goes up.
the most deliberate assault you will ever see.
And back to my mark. Okay. It's so funny.
Can we cut that?
God.
What's that?
Can we cut that? That's what you'd say.
Oh, yeah. So you're asking to stop the deepest dive. Stop it. Stop it. I like the reporter. Stop it.
I'm sorry.
Can we cut everything up until now?
And action.
I actually felt the beef question more. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
No. What question?
I felt like there was more trauma around Conrad than around the reporter. That to me felt like entitled fandom history.
Ooh, very interesting. Yeah, Sean.
With the gun in his face?
No, I did not.
I did. Yeah, I scared him off.
Yeah, Sean Mills wrote in about that idea of, so eventually just put a gun in his face and say, scram, nerd.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's basically
I think I said, for all my being mean to other people in this game, which I definitely did, I was like, the galaxy needs you to go home to your wife, Conrad. Like, I just like talked to him. I was like, oh, you're called to duty in your bedroom, in your house. Like, that was what I said.
Oh, boy. But the fandom for BioWare only got better from here.
One thing real quick about the reporter is like one thing that surprises me is people talk about like so I tweeted about hanging up on the council a lot and punching the reporter, and those seem to be the things that even people who are doing Paragon playthroughs, I think that those are the things that most commonly get them to swing Renegade just for a moment. It's like, look, I'm a really nice guy, Shepard, I'm very tolerant, but I'm hanging up on the council and I am punching that nosy reporter, no matter what.
Yeah. I disagree. Chris Calkins writes in and says, what is the deal with all the important C words in this game? We got Commander, Citadel, Conduit, Cypher, Cerberus, Captain, Council, Counselor in this game alone. A few more are added in the next 2 games, but do you think Casey Hudson was behind this? So the theory, Chris, is that Casey really likes his name starting with a C.
Conspiracy theory.
Very cute. Very cute. Yeah, some games just get in rhythm. Certain games' lore just lean into certain letters, but we'd have to ask Casey. That's a great question for Casey Hudson is, do you like your name so much that you wanted to insert C?
The first letter of your name.
You like the first letter of your name so much. Just C dominance? Is this
Are you C dominant, Casey Hudson? Benjamin Bovin asks, after hearing how many times XO Presley has the deck, it really made me think that throughout the trilogy, and especially Mass Effect 1, you're never really made to feel like the captain of a ship. Especially since your second in command, Presley, is such a disposable character. Only 2 of your squad mates are your actual subordinates, and the rest are your cool alien friends who are outside your chain of command. You don't really control any aspect of the Normandy or its crew except for where it takes you for your next Captain Kirk-style mission. And no one questions the riskiness of sending the commanding officer on a series of increasingly dangerous away missions.
It's the Spectre issue, there you got a lot of responsibility.
I'm sorry, wait, back me up. What was the part about how are you a commanding officer of a ship? I
think they want more of like standing in the ship and barking orders, or even, I don't know if Benjamin here is looking for like, we need more power to the thrusters in the back and like some sort of like FTL level adjustment or something, but just it does feel kind of disconnected. You basically just run to the world map in your ship and talk to people, but don't really command people around much there.
Look, I don't know how it works in the military, but on boats, the captain really doesn't. The first mate does everything and is responsible for everything failing. So it's like the captain getting in the mix is not all that, shouldn't be necessary.
Are you a big boater, Sarah?
I sailed for a bit.
Really? That's cool.
I did. I was a cabin steward. I cleaned the head and also taught environmental science.
Wait, okay, what is this like? What do you mean? How does this work?
Tall ships. So like a schooner, like a big 2-masted thing. And I sailed on the Hudson, up and down the Hudson River. And it's like old fashioned, it's a sailboat, right? And it's like 110 feet sparred length. And we took kids and like on field trips, and that's the part of the season we would take them on trips and teach them about the Hudson.
That's a very specific thing. That's really cool.
It's a very specific weird thing that now I'm leaning heavily on for this role-playing campaign where I play a space captain.
Oh, smart.
Not writing shanties, but yeah, it's random. But I will credit sailing with helping me find speaking of commands and things, this is a total detour, but like I credit sailing with giving me my yelling commandy voice.
Ooh, because like over the waves, you really got to belt it out.
You got to yell. You are yelling commands, especially if you're mainly if you're raising sail. So if you have a heavy sail and you've got people lined up on either side, you have to coordinate everyone and tell them when to stop and when to haul and when to hold. And so you have to shout over people and shout over wind. Like you get over being like, I'm a little dainty girl. And you're like, I have to yell at you all now. So that kind of projection and the whatever that is came from there, I would say.
Cool. That's interesting.
Anyway.
No, that's fair. Joe, did you have thoughts on the commander aspect?
Yeah, just two things real quick about it. I actually think that it's interesting, and we've talked about both of these things briefly in previous episodes, but I think it's interesting that people salute you, like the grunt soldiers salute when you walk by. Like, to me, that conveys that sense of like, oh yeah, I'm in charge here. And the fact that they're saying Exo Presley has the deck and Exo Presley stands relieved, I think for me, that reminded me that I'm in charge of this ship, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, when I'm gone, someone else has to take charge because like I'm the one who's watching over this thing, you know?
Yeah.
So it had the opposite effect for me. It actually made me feel like more connected to that role.
Yeah, I dig that too.
Nick Rodriguez and a bunch of other folks actually throughout the entire Deepest Dive have mentioned just like weird audio issues like volume is all over the place, especially with surround sound here for Nick, but like some VO is way too low. Leo, you hit that as well?
Yeah, it was like missing an audio track when they were bringing the bomb in. It was just like dead silent until suddenly there was some footsteps splashing in water. It felt like it was just missing a track.
Oh, weird. Mm-hmm. It's like that trailer for The Mummy.
Exactly.
Okay.
I don't know what that is. Send it to me.
God, I don't even know if it's still... So what is the story? So they released the trailer for Tom Cruise's Mummy. And in the trailer, I don't even know technically how this worked, but somehow in the trailer on YouTube, they had like all the different audio tracks. And so immediately the internet's like, oh, we can strip out all the different audio tracks. So they re-uploaded it with only one audio track.
I thought they uploaded, that was the official upload that they did on accident.
Oh, maybe this is a story. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. So it's just fascinating, just like from an audio editing perspective, because you're listening to this and it's just like Tom Cruise in a fight in a plane in the Mummy trailer. And you just hear Tom Cruise like, just like weird repeated says. I mean, this is your life, Sarah, so it's probably not fascinating to you, but it's just so weird to have like.
Oh, I love it.
And then like as a bunch of birds are like striking the plane, the pilot just goes pan, pan, pan. It's just the weirdest, uncomfortable tone.
It sounds great.
It's the best thing about Tom Cruise's Mummy.
It's really good.
Rory Sublet. Do you ever do trailer stuff like that, Sarah? Do you ever come in and do like just Foley sounds and stuff for film trailers?
Not for, well, let me think actually. I almost did some ADR for the Mortal Kombat trailer. But yeah, I auditioned for stuff like that. I mean, I've done ADR for some features and for, and then a lot of live action dubbing, which is the same principle.
Right.
So I had, yeah. And it's always really fun. And you're just reacting, you're chasing. I mean, what I like about it, honestly, is that like you are just, with games, you're making everything up. It's very rare, unless you're like doing a specific cutscene. Like I'm just making up how big something in impact is supposed to be or not. But like when you're dubbing, you just get to see exactly what's the intensity of everything that's happening. It's handy.
Tell me if this is a stupid and uncomfortable question for you. I don't think it'll be that bad. But you must have auditioned for Mass Effect Andromeda, right? I'd imagine you.
I think so. I must have.
Okay.
I think that time overlaps. I think so. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, were you bummed you weren't in that game, being such a big fan of?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm glad it's not like a memorable heartbreak for you.
I can't. You know what's really handy is when you audition enough that you can't remember things.
Right.
That's like a really lucky, blessed problem to have, or like whatever thing that happens to you. I'm actually going to go check. I bet I can. Because I'm sure it had a code name, so I'm not really sure. But if I can recreate it.
Yeah. Did you have like a good satisfying moment when you were cast in Anthem? Did you get to be like, huzzah, now I'll go out for a nice Italian dinner or anything cool like that? The coolest thing you can do?
It was so surreal.
That's cool.
It continues to be surreal. It's honestly, it's still surreal. I still haven't like internalized it into my sense of self. It's like I have sort of an out of body experience. I feel like I also, when I auditioned with an MP3, and then I came in and I did a day of performance capture with Nick Tarabay, who plays Halleck, and has since been in a bunch of other games, including Call of Duty and stuff. And it felt to me like I was still auditioning. So like the reality of that job was I felt like I was continuing to audition, like didn't quite have the part for like such a long time.
Right.
But I wasn't like yes, nailed it, gonna go drink now. I was like, oh God, I hope they like today, like for like a long time.
That's such a bummer. Like I always heard stories about Carrie Fisher thought she was going to be fired throughout the entire filming of New Hope because she was too fat, is how she saw it. Where it's like, what? Can you imagine having that mindset?
It's stressful. It's very stressful. And it's like, because they can just recast you, whenever without explanation, which has also happened. So it was, and I'd been burnt. So what it does is it gives you a really good chance to just live in the moment. You're like, I had today. Today I worked and it was lovely. Right. And that's it. Yeah. And that's all you know. So I didn't really like have a moment where I like flipped out, but I was kind of also flipping out also the whole time.
Yeah. Oh,
and
good.
Still.
Oh, good.
So yeah.
Taylor C writes in with a natural segue saying, I do wish there was more variety in Renegade resolutions other than just kill. What do you want? Like more elaborate torture? What else can you do as a Renegade? You got kill or
punches?
Punches. Big wind-up punches. That's true.
Some of those options are like kind of the things we were talking about, things that are a little less the criminal gets away or I let the hostages blow up, and things that are just a little more like I think some more of those situations that aren't just you punching someone or letting people die, and things that are a little more nuanced, like the Rachni Queen or something, I think would be, That's how I would interpret something like that.
Yeah. Daniel Miller submits a comment on Patreon saying, if you had to pinpoint one thing that Mass Effect 1 has that most modern games don't, what do you think it would be? For me, it's giving characters a bit of time to breathe. It builds a solid foundation for the rest of the trilogy to go full throttle. That's interesting. I think it is.
I was really appreciating how you can press X or A in the middle of the last dialogue before you get to speak, and the prompts will pop up, and then you can like queue up what you're gonna say. I really liked doing that as much as I could to have the conversation play out like a cutscene, even though I was making decisions during it. Like, I don't know of another game that did that besides like Oxenfree.
Huh.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think a lot of it comes back to me, for the first episode we had was just talking about world building and kind of introducing a really pretty complicated sci-fi world in a really enticing way, just through having character first interactions.
I mean, remind me, because I may be wrong about this, it feels like I can't think of other examples off the top of my head of something that stretched your choices out over this many titles in this much time. Is that no?
I mean, it's definitely the best example. I'm trying to think. I mean, Two Humans said it was going to be a trilogy. That's like the go-to example, but I don't even think they were banking on like big choices. I'm trying to remember if in StarCraft 2, they definitely have like Mass Effect-like choices in the campaign for StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty, but I don't think by the time you get to like Legacy of the Void that it matters at all.
I mean, have we imported saves into a thing that wasn't Dragon Age? That like
Quest for Glory.
What is it?
Quest for Glory. You import your character from one game to the next. An old Sierra adventure game, but I don't know that it necessarily it imports some like stats and abilities and stuff, but you're not importing a world state. I mean, I think it's safe to say that Mass Effect is the first game that starts that has a persistent world state across games
that you affect.
Yeah, massively.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. Do you think that, when they're making
that feels special to me is my answer.
I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
Do you think that with the new Mass Effect they're working on, where it feels like the story is going to be kind of the hunt for Shepard, or we're going to try and clone Shepard, or whatever that is, or trying to piece back together what the hell is happening? Old Liara is rambling around. Do you think the game would be cool enough where if you clone shepherd in this far distant future or whatever happens in that new Mass Effect game, if it like reads your save secretly from the Legendary Edition and just like puts your shepherd automatically in there. Wouldn't that be kind of cool?
Yeah.
This is a very stupid, far-fetched thing, so I appreciate the squinted eyes, Joe.
Okay. To answer your question, yes, that would be cool.
Cool, thanks.
I guess the reason I'm squinting is I've had conversations with like developers at BioWare about just what a nightmare the actual process of having having decisions carry over from one game to the next was. And I think this is, and especially when you're dealing with like cross-generational like games and things like that. Well, I mean, Mass Effect was all on 360, but some of this would be in the context of like Dragon Age, for instance.
Right. You'd have to
solve this problem, they set up just sort of like a website, the Dragon Age Keep, that it's like, you just tell us what your world state is, and you can import that into the next game, but it's not dependent on like in-game flags that you're doing and stuff like that. So I think that if they did something like that, it would probably be like what they did with Dragon Age. They would set up an online service where you tell it what your world state is, where maybe even you do an online character creator and say like, this is my shepherd. But I don't think it will read your save from any console and like pull it directly from that. I'm sure that you will have to like somehow actively participate to make that happen.
It won't be passive. It can't be. Yeah. That makes sense to me.
Here we go. Carl Lewington. Look alive, Leo. More alive than you've ever looked in your life, because Carl Lewington writes in and says, with the first game, well, less alive than that, please. Okay, thank you.
My shepherd definitely made that face at some point in the last fight. And I was like, oh.
Could you go back to smirking? It looks pretty alive. Carl says, with the first game in the bag, what are some predictions from Leo as to where certain story threads may lead? No cheating from the rest of the class. Okay. Give us some predictions. Sincere predictions, funny boy. None of your jokes.
Love it. I'm going to have a poker face for the first time in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, no eye rolling here, Hanson.
Okay.
For which story threads?
Just the big ones.
Any of the ones.
Where do you think it goes from here? How do you think the characters evolve? What happens with the Reapers? All that fun stuff.
You get the Reapers at the end.
You get
the third one.
You kill them all?
That's probably the choice you make, right?
So what happens in the second one?
I don't know. What's left open right now? I can see them setting up new things with like the members of the cast, learning more about them and everything, but I don't know what was set up that is directly going to pay off.
Yeah.
What do you want to see pay off?
I want to marry Caden.
Oh.
In front of everybody. I want everybody to cheer, and I want Ashley's ghost to give a thumbs up.
That's great.
It's beautiful, man. I think it's kind of, a testament to the game and how well it does tie things up, that it's not like clearly what these huge dangling threads are that they have to deal with. Like,
yeah. I didn't think we'd bring down the Sovereign in this game.
Oh,
I didn't think there'd be the like destroyed Citadel in this game either. Like I thought they would save that for later. So I did feel more complete than I expected it to.
Yeah. So all the hullabaloo about Mass Effect 3's ending, which we're not spoiling here, like did any of it sink into you, or are you still flying blind? Or like, I know people are outraged, but I don't really know why.
Maybe by the time I get to it, it'll click of the things I heard. Well, like, oh yeah, that's probably what's going to happen. But yeah, I couldn't tell you what that choice is right now at all.
Right. And so Caden's your favorite character?
He grew on me a lot, for sure. But Rex will never not be in my party.
Yeah.
And Caden will always stay home where he will be safe.
In my bunker of a home, just to keep this boy toy safe.
He's just got like an apron with a dad joke on it, like flipping burgers.
Yes. Throw your guns away, Caden. You won't be needing them.
Scott Heslop asked, does the updates made to the game and playing it all these years later change how it ranks for you in the series overall? It was my favorite before, and it's still my favorite now, personally. Like, I was a little bit worried about that middle stretch, but by the end, I was like, yeah, I still feel good about this one being my favorite.
I guess 2 is still my fave. But they're hard to, they all do different things so well. I think 3 is a really powerful wrap up, and this is such a great setup. And then middle bits is all my favorite relationships, really.
Yeah.
So,
That's what I've heard about too, is it's the more meaningful side stuff and character missions. And that's what I'm excited for about it, for sure.
Yeah.
yeah.
And Joe, 2 still your favorite?
Well, we've had this argument before. I'm not a big fan of ranking the 3 Mass Effect games.
So cowardly. Yeah. Oh, I hate it so much. Yeah, because like when Joe ranks,
I basically just did that kind of.
No, you're fine. But Joe here, we did like our favorite games of all time, and Joe's like the Mass Effect trilogy. It's like, no.
Oh, that is a cop-out.
Yeah, you need to select one, you coward.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of, I think Mass Effect 3 is actually my favorite of them.
Wow.
Because, and again, I know that there are a lot of people out there who don't like the ending. I liked the ending. From the very beginning, I liked the original, unmodified ending. I thought it was great. and all the stuff that I said before about like that game feeling like, that third game feeling like the payoff that I wanted from all of the, previous ones. So like, there's stuff that I love about the original Mass Effect here. There's stuff I love about Mass Effect 2, all the things that you guys have talked about already here, but I think no amount of like minor changes is going to elevate Mass Effect as like, oh, well, this is my favorite now.
Sure.
I think like for me, like I was saying before too, about the sort of emotional New Game Plus, it all just sort of feeds, it's all just this loop. It all just feeds into each other so intricately that it's like, it is such a unified saga to me that you can talk about them individually in terms of mechanics or story, but they don't feel separate to me. So that's my long-winded cop-out.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's long-winded. I don't know if I feel better about it at this point, but all right. So, Leo, I'm curious about the future of Mass Effect for you, because I think it's very easy to say, I'm going to play the rest of the trilogy. But you're a busy man. Do you think, honestly, you will get to the end of 3 this year?
Ooh, that's a great question. I can say with 100% confidence I'm going to start Mass Effect 2.
Okay.
And I'd love to stream it on our MinnMax plays on Thursdays.
Yeah.
At some point soon. But yeah, I can't confidently say I'll make it to the end of 3. Because, yeah, games are long and I have it on PlayStation, which I don't play as much as PC.
Interesting. Okay. But yeah, follow us on Twitch for at some point you streaming Mass Effect 2. And people have requested some sort of follow-up, like if you do finish Mass Effect 2 and you want to jump in and do like a max spoilers on it or something, or like the entire trilogy, I think that'd be really fun to have just a quick little thing just to hear your thoughts on the other ones, because everyone's very curious about your thoughts. And yeah, it's so tough going through this and not just remembering these great moments from 2 and 3. Be like, oh, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that. Like, I don't know, I still love best friend Ronnie. You know him from the Divas Dive and Final Fantasy VII Remake and Super Mario 64, all that fun stuff. He loved Mass Effect, and there is a moment in Mass Effect 3 where a character does something, without spoiling anything, where he said, nope, that's it. That's the end of Shepard's story. And he never finished Mass Effect 3 because he was so horrified by this thing that this one character does, and he was so distraught over it. Which I'll tell you guys after the stream. Yeah. But it was just, I just love that idea of having these big moments, and somebody who loves the series can hit a moment in Mass Effect 3 and be like, that's it. In my canon, Shepard just gives up the fight after that happened.
Just sits down on the floor.
Yeah, it's a done deal. I don't care what happens. And yeah, I guess, Leo, just to keep ringing that rag, I mean, you finished Mass Effect 1. Was it everything you thought it'd be? Better, worse? Give us a big conclusion here, man.
I really turned around on it in this chunk. Like, 2, it was a medium level and the first part, lower for the second part, way up top for the third part. But I will say maybe that's partially because I just put a podcast in for all the combat stuff.
Yeah.
I'm very eager to see what the combat that people like is like, for sure. But I think the way where the story went, I was surprised how much I was into it, for sure.
Oh, good. And I imagine it feels good to finally check it off the list.
Yes. And it's, after so long of starting it and stopping it, making it through to the end and it being worth it feels very good.
Yeah. Any other conclusion thoughts on going through Mass Effect again, Sarah or Joe? Hang on, she's a little choked up.
I mean, for me, I guess I am surprised at how much I was willing to admit to myself that there were problems in this game.
Right.
know? Like as much as I still enjoyed playing it, like I said, I did try to turn off my just sort of like the nostalgia blinders a little bit and just try and like assess it as though, I mean, it obviously can't be my first time, but it's like, I guess I tried to be a little more present and thinking about what would someone be thinking if they didn't have the connection that I have here. And I think, some of the stuff about the combat and the characterization and things like that do stand out to me, but not necessarily in a way that feels like a huge flaw or a problem, as much as like more like, yeah, this game came out in 2007.
Yeah.
And BioWare's formula was and is like still evolving in ways like that. Like this wasn't just the sort of set in stone, like sort of like calcified version of, oh yeah, this is just what BioWare always does. I think that something like that is more apparent in something like even Dragon Age Origins or something. Like, like in Dragon Age Origins, they basically follow the Saren blueprint of giving you an introduction with a villain that you hate at the very beginning in Loghain, and then he's more or less absent for most of the game until you encounter him again at the end, So there's that kind of like, Dragon Age feels a little more like, oh, it's BioWare doing this again, even though I love Dragon Age Origins. But I think Mass Effect, you're still in a phase of experimentation. And I think the things about that make it rough around the edges are also the things that kind of make it endearing for me. So,
yeah, that's beautiful.
That's such a nice wrap up.
Yeah. Sarah, did you have it,
Sarah?
I can't.
You got to do
I
it.
don't know if I can. I mean, I think actually what shocked me was I didn't have the emotional New Game Plus that you're like. I successfully took myself back, and I was like, so I was kind of much more keyed into like certain turns of dialogue or certain sections of conversations would jump out at me. And I was like, oh, you're interesting. And so like I was surprised to be like, I feel like I was meeting these characters afresh, and they were like pretty cool. And I think probably like I lost the thrill of the whole thing being new. So what was left was like really standout turns of phrase or beats or like, oh, that's a cool facet. So it was much more like specific when I found myself hooking into these people instead of just being like, come here, old friend. I was like, for some reason, that was how it hit me. So it was kind of nice to be like very precise and like, just more considered as I was, I don't know. Yeah, I have a different lens now. So it's been really cool. But it also just makes me so happy. There are still beats and moments the fact that there are still beats and moments that do surprise me and do stand out for quality in the world that we live in with games as they've come, as far as they've come, makes me glad, makes me very happy.
Yeah. The Tune submits a comment on Patreon saying, just wanted to say, thanks for choosing Mass Effect 1 for this edition of The Deepest Dive. I played Mass Effect 2 and 3 several times back in the day, but never touched Mass Effect 1 and was going to skip the Legendary Edition altogether. The process of thoroughly going through Mass Effect 1 with the MinnMax community in the Discord has given me a rejuvenated and newfound love for the series. I started Mass Effect 2 as soon as 1's credits rolled, and am already experiencing it with a leveled up appreciation. Thank you,
so
Tune.
good.
Very
that game
sweet.
opens real good.
Real good opening.
Real good opening.
Brad is here to top everything, saying, in the interest of making this the most thorough discussion on Mass Effect on the internet, the best, most thorough discussion, Brad, I wanted to discuss one of the long-forgotten pieces of the Mass Effect experience called Mass Effect New Earth, which is the theme park ride at California's Great America in Santa Clara, California. I went on this ride shortly after it opened in 2016, and it is wild. The story goes that by sitting in motion-enhanced seats and looking at the giant 3D video, you are a mix of colonists getting ready to settle and tourists taking a vacation to the newly discovered world on the rim of the galaxy called Terra Nova, only to discover too late that there's a live Reaper on that planet already. Wasn't Terra Nova the DLC planet?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a
actual Mass Effect branded thing?
Yes. And they say highlights of the ride include, but are not limited to, a live actor on stage in front of you explicitly playing Conrad Werner, and reaching to events in the show / pretending to interact with the different characters that appear. There are appearances by Rex and Garrus with original voiceover, chastising the audience for daring to take such a dangerous vacation. There's an attack from an unnamed giant Rachni that roars and spits directly into the camera in 3D and therefore activates the motion share water guns that spray you in the face with Rachni acid. Passing through a mass relay, which is as incredibly cool as it sounds in a big 3D theme park ride. And finally, it all culminates in a Star Tour style finale where you, a shuttle full of tourists and colonists, help Garrus and Rex guide the actor playing Conrad Werner through the destruction of this unnamed surprise Reaper. If you're ever in Santa Clara and you love Mass Effect, I can't recommend making a stop at Great America for Mass Effect New Earth enough. Much better than the time they rebranded a roller coaster in 2001 to be about the Tomb Raider movie.
And it's still there?
I think it's still there. I looked up a YouTube video and there's like some big explosion and then Garrus jumps in and he goes, "Now that's what I call science." It's like, right? All right, Garrus.
Famed scientist Garrus.
Yeah, it's really
Who cares what you
bizarre.
call science, dummy?
I kind of want to make
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we have to do a deepest dive field trip.
Yeah.
Please, can I come, please?
All right, if we hit 1 million views, we'll all go and film our experience for the Mass Effect New Earth ride in Santa Clara. That would be super fun.
God.
I feel like I want to do like a video about the weird under the radar video game tie-in rides, because somebody let me know that there's like a Plants vs. Zombies ride as well with like guns and stuff. I forget where it is. Neighborville, I think. Anyways, BeatenDownBrian submits a comment on Patreon saying, "Been super busy, so I haven't gotten to finish the game yet, so I'll use my comment to just say thank you to Sarah and Joe for being on. It's always great to have the perspective of longtime fans for these older games. I'd also like to thank Leo for hanging in there. You doing okay, bud?" Asked BeatenDownBrian.
I am now.
Oh, Sarah and Joe.
You got Caden.
Thank you. Thank you for your wonderful contributions. Couldn't have done it without you. Leo and I would have hated each other at hour number 7, but you two kept it all fresh. So thank you for joining us on this grand adventure.
Thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure.
Yeah, it was great. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's nice to, you know what, get thorough and specific with a game that I love. And so people and your comments and reading hundreds of comments has kind of reframed the way that I look at one of my favorite games of all time. So I couldn't ask for anything more. So thanks to everybody who submitted wonderful comments over on Patreon. Again, if you want to support this type of content, you can head over to Patreon and unlock the podcast version, or you can join it in the future as well. We'd appreciate it. And any help sharing the deepest side with other Mass Effect fans is appreciated. Sarah, what would you like to plug?
Well, I'm about to eat maybe some food if I'm lucky, and then do some role playing. So I'm doing interactive D&D. It's on Facebook. It's called The Maze on Planet 7. And I play a squiddy space pirate scoundrel with a Scottish brogue, and it's a good time. And you get to vote on what happens to the party. So it's pretty intense, and it's great. And then, I don't know, keep playing video games, and maybe you'll hear my voice soon.
Ooh, big project coming up?
Yeah.
Huge?
Yeah. Good buzz. Feeling good about it. Yeah.
Is this okay? Is this something?
Can't say.
Is this something that will be revealed at E3 by chance?
No. No, it's been revealed. I just can't say that I'm in it yet.
Okay. At some point, please let us know.
Soon. So soon. It's ridiculous, but I'm being very good.
Okay. We're very
Me
impressed.
being good. And give me a cookie. Yeah.
I was
Joe,
going to stop playing video games, but now I'm going to continue.
hell yeah.
Not yet,
For a
Joe.
little
Not
longer.
yet. Yeah.
Joe, what cool, amazing projects do you have on the horizon?
Stop doing this to me.
I don't know. Plug your Twitter or something.
Speaking of stopping things, I am no longer a gaming journalist, but you can follow me at Jojuba on Twitter, where I sometimes tweet about cookies, and I'll be playing some Yakuza probably. So
Hell yeah.
there's Yakuza stuff there.
Which Yakuza?
I'm on 3 now. I'm doing a run through of like
Oh, cool.
all of them. So
That's amazing. Cool. All right, Leo Vader.
Watch our E3 stuff.
Hell yeah.
E3.
E3.
Leo, do you have a name for what you're calling your and Jeff's thing yet?
That's a good question.
Oh, we're calling it the E3 Hive. Live reveal to Ben Hansen.
Yeah. Hive. All right. I don't know what that
E3
means.
Hive.
Is that like a pun I'm not getting?
On a beehive.
Ah, I see.
I got it immediately.
And
I didn't.
that's how you know that it's a killer name. I got
1 for 3
good
ain't bad.
Is that a pun I'm not getting? What's the response you're looking for?
No, that sounds great. I'm looking forward to that content. Yeah, subscribe to our YouTube channel and we'll be rolling out a bunch of fun E3 stuff. Leo, after E3 is all said and done, we should probably come back for another Deepest Dive, wouldn't you say?
Of course.
And what if, let's just say, you know, theoretically, we came back as a follow-up Deepest Dive to our most popular Deepest Dive of all time. What would you say about that?
Super Mario 65 Deepest Dive?
That's right. Everyone look forward to the announcement of E3. No, we are coming back. A lot of people have been asking. The next Deepest Dive will be Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. The Yuffie DLC. We don't know how long it is. I'd imagine it's going to be a couple hours. We imagine this is going to be a 1-episode deal. But because it's coming out in the peak of E3, we're not going to torture everybody. So we're going to have the Deepest Dive on Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade happening on June 21st. So play that DLC, just the DLC, not the entire game. We already did that for the Deepest Dive. You can find that.
So the DLC, I think, is called Intermission specifically.
Okay.
And Intergrade is, I think, the whole like PS5 version.
Thank you for knowing more about it than I do. But anyways, we'll be talking all about Yuffie and her wacky adventures in Midgar on June 21st. So submit a comment over on Patreon, and you can get ready by unlocking the podcast version of it now by supporting us over on Patreon. All right. Thanks so much, everybody, for being here. Thanks again to everybody who submitted great comments along the way, and we'll see you next time. Hang on, is there some Mass Effect way to say goodbye or something?
Embrace
Sarah?
eternity.
Oh, yeah.
I should go.
Beautiful. Sarah, do you want to just give us one clean line read of whichever way you want to sign off?
Okay. And I should go.
If you are sick of snark, clickbait, and an avalanche of movie news, you can help support independent games media by subscribing to MinnMax's YouTube channel here or checking out the benefits over on Patreon. It's a nice, clean handshake. You support us, and we won't make dumb, condescending stuff for you. Your support helps us continue our mission of focusing on games, friends, and getting better. Patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. We'd appreciate it.